The ocean off the cape is glass and shadow. A cold dawn light licks the surface, fractured by the swell, flashing silver and gunmetal as the sun climbs over the headlands. Beneath that glimmering plain, the water is a cathedral of silence and pressure. Every beam of light is bent into columns, every particle suspended in slow motion. And somewhere below, a shape glides through it all, deliberate, invisible, and calculating. The great white shark does not simply move, it solves the sea. At the edge of the kelp forest, where green fronds sway in rhythmic hypnosis, geometry becomes survival. The shark's body, torpedo-shaped and proportioned by evolution's ruthless equations, obeys laws older than physics itself. Its counter-shaded skin, gunmetal grey above, ivory below, forms a perfect optical trick. When viewed from the top, the dark back merges with the abyss. From below, the pale belly fades into the sunlit surface. It is not camouflage in the usual sense. It is mathematical vanishing. Every ray of light striking its flanks is absorbed or reflected in such a way that the outline dissolves into the background. To the untrained eye, or the trembling fish, the shark ceases to exist. The kelp line is more than habitat. It is the dividing wall between two visual worlds, the refracted sunlight of the shallows and the dim infinity of the open blue. In this narrow corridor, the great white conducts a kind of geometry lesson in death. The water density changes, the glare windows shift, and the shark calculates the path of least visibility. Its eyes, black and deep as obsidian marbles, are tuned to low light, capable of tracking silhouettes against the flicker of the surface. A seal may see only light scatter, but the shark sees the pattern beneath the noise. It positions itself where contrast collapses, its outline aligning with the shadows cast by kelp, its motion synchronized with the rolling surge. Every approach is a slow equation of angles, light, and timing. When the moment comes, the ghost becomes kinetic. The shark's body flexes in a wave of power that begins at the tail and whips forward through muscle and cartilage. Unlike most fish, the great white is partially warm-blooded, a marvel of internal thermoregulation. A vascular structure called the rete mirabile keeps heat generated by swimming muscles circulating, raising body temperature above that of the surrounding sea. In the frigid waters of the South Atlantic, this gives the shark an explosive advantage. Its red muscle fibers, rich in oxygen and mitochondria, fire like living engines, propelling the animal upward with terrifying acceleration. From stillness to full attack in less than a second, the ghost geometry collapses into raw physics. A breach is not simply a display of violence. It is the result of precision timing, momentum, and sensory fusion. The shark attacks from below at a steep angle, its trajectory calculated so that the prey's panic and the shark's own inertia intersect exactly at the surface. In that instant, the boundary between air and sea is shattered. The ocean erupts, and a ton of flesh and muscle hurtles skyward, trailing water like shattered glass. This spectacle, immortalized in slow-motion documentaries, is not a common event in the shark's life. It is the culmination of stealth mathematics, a rare moment where all variables align. Yet the breach is only half the story. Most of a great white's kills do not involve this cinematic explosion. More often, it employs the opposite strategy: perfect silence. The same equations of light and movement apply, but the shark stops short of visibility, veering at the final meter. A quick dart, a single bite, and it drifts away. To human observers, these test bites often seem like mistakes, cases of mistaken identity where surfers or seals are supposedly misjudged for one another. But the science tells another tale. Most test bites are diagnostic. The shark's jaw, lined with pressure sensors called ampullae of Lorenzini, can read information as finely as a scientist's probe. A single bite can tell it fat content, muscle density, and chemical composition. It is not confusion, it is data collection. This diagnostic behavior makes evolutionary sense. Large prey such as seals are high-risk targets, agile, potentially dangerous, and capable of counterattack. A full commitment requires confidence that the meal is worth the energy. So the great white approaches like a biologist conducting an experiment, It samples, withdraws, and analyzes. If the result promises high caloric return, it returns to finish the kill. If not, it vanishes again into the blue geometry. What humans interpret as indecision is, in fact, algorithmic precision honed over millions of years. Even the shark's sensory systems operate like instruments in a laboratory. Along its snout and head, clusters of jelly-filled pores detect minute electrical fields emitted by the muscles of other animals. This electroreception allows the great white to track prey even when sight is useless, through murk, darkness, or the visual chaos of the kelp. Combined with an acute sense of smell capable of detecting a drop of blood in an Olympic-sized pool, the shark navigates a world of invisible maps. Each movement of fin or pulse of muscle in nearby creatures becomes a coordinate in a living graph, triangulated and stored in an ancient neurological framework. To exist inside this sensory world is to live in 3 dimensions of data. When the camera follows a great white from the side, the sheer economy of its motion is hypnotic. The pectoral fins act like aircraft wings, providing lift and stability, while the tail scythes through the water with measured rhythm. Every flicker of movement conserves energy, a crucial adaptation in an environment where meals are sporadic. This balance between patience and violence defines the shark's entire physiology. The liver, enormous and oil-rich, acts as both buoyancy control and energy storage, a natural fuel tank allowing the predator to drift for hours, even days, without a meal. It is evolution's answer to the problem of scarcity: convert gluttony into endurance. At the kelp line, the ecosystem responds to this geometry in subtle ways. Seals change their routes, shifting from open channels to dense kelp forests where the shark's size becomes a handicap. Fish schools alter their depth layers, avoiding the ghost zone where light and shadow merge. Even seabirds diving for fish sense the tension, their wings hesitating above certain corridors of water. The shark, though unseen, structures the entire behavior of the food web, a kind of topological predator. Its presence reshapes movement, timing, and fear itself. Occasionally, researchers have noted a strange paradox. When the sharks disappear for weeks, the kelp line becomes noisier, busier, but also more chaotic. Without the regulating influence of the top predator, mid-level species like fur seals overhunt fish populations, and the delicate balance collapses. In a sense, the ghost geometry is ecological order made flesh. The shark is not simply a killer. It is the equation that keeps the ocean's variables stable. And yet, despite its legend, the great white remains an animal bound by vulnerability. Tagging studies reveal that even these giants are nomads of uncertainty, crossing thousands of kilometers between feeding grounds, navigating vast tracts of empty water, where one miscalculation means starvation. Their warm-blooded efficiency comes at a cost, a higher metabolic demand that forces constant hunting. In this way, the ghost geometry becomes a double-edged formula, perfection that must always stay in motion. Underwater footage from submersibles shows another side of this equation. When a shark passes through the curtain of kelp, its entire posture changes. The long, sweeping tail beats shorten into quick, angular pulses. The great predator moves like a submarine threading through mines, careful not to tangle its fins. This restraint contradicts the usual image of reckless aggression. It is a demonstration of neural control and spatial awareness. Every flicker of muscle, every shift in angle, is a recalculated adjustment in a constantly changing maze of stems and light beams. This is where ghost becomes more than metaphor. The shark reads its environment not as scenery, but as a set of optical puzzles. Light filtered through the canopy of kelp forms moving bands of brightness. To an observer, these are random. To the shark, they are windows. Scientists call them glare windows, transient portals of reduced visibility where contrast drops and movement can be concealed. The shark synchronizes its own movement to these light patterns, gliding when the glare peaks, pausing when the water clears. Its hunting rhythm is dictated by the physics of sunlight. It is not stalking by instinct, but by optics. When the prey finally enters range, a juvenile seal fattened by summer, the shark does not charge blindly. It adjusts its depth so that the target's silhouette aligns with the background shimmer. At this moment, the shark's dorsal fin is still meters below the surface. Then, with a precise flick of the caudal fin, the body becomes a coiled spring. The strike is a single unbroken gesture, like a line drawn through water with divine precision. The seal never sees the predator. It only feels the eruption of pressure and the sudden blackout of pain. Whether or not the shark continues to feed depends on the information it receives in that instant, the feedback of texture, temperature, and chemical cues flooding through its sensory system. Humans watching from boats often misread what follows. A floating carcass, a circling fin, a red bloom on the surface, all appear as brutal simplicity. But to the shark, it is feedback processing, calibration for future hunts. Each encounter refines the algorithm. This is why young sharks often miss or perform non-lethal bites. They are still programming themselves against the variables of the real world. Through repetition, failure becomes geometry learned. To study these predators is to glimpse the convergence of physics, physiology, and intelligence without emotion. The great white is not malevolent, it is a problem solver in perpetual motion. Its ghost geometry is the language of survival written in angles and shadows. For millions of years, this code has ruled the coastal frontiers of the planet's oceans, invisible until the exact second it chooses to reveal itself. When the shark finally descends again, the sea absorbs it completely. The water closes over its path, the light smooths out, and only the kelp sways, a silent metronome marking the rhythm of a world where death and design are one and the same. The surface glints with the indifferent beauty of morning, but below, the equation continues to move, unseen, through the cold arithmetic of the deep. The ocean at dusk becomes a mirror of liquid steel, heavy and hushed, the horizon a blur between fading sky and endless water. Out here, beyond the last shimmer of coastline, a silence settles that is not absence but anticipation. Beneath that calm surface moves a mind of order and precision, the orca, the ocean's most deliberate predator. Nothing about its existence is random. Every motion, every sound, every restraint has purpose. In this world of acoustics, silence is not emptiness, it is a blade. To understand an orca's hunt is to step into a domain where sound replaces sight as the architecture of life. Orcas, like all toothed whales, live in an acoustic universe. Their echolocation, bursts of high-frequency clicks, builds a three-dimensional image of the world in perfect clarity, a kind of sonar sculpted by evolution. Each click bounces from the skin of a seal, the rib of a whale, or even the tiny air pockets trapped in sea ice, returning a portrait far richer than human vision. But this power is not used carelessly. The ocean, filled with echoes and interference, punishes noise. To announce oneself in the deep is to forfeit surprise, and so the orca learns restraint. The apex hunter becomes an acoustic surgeon, precise, controlled, and silent when it matters most. In the high latitudes of the Southern Ocean, pods of orcas navigate along ice shelves like a fleet of submarines. They travel in tight formation, coordinated not by chatter, but by intuition honed through years of communal hunting. Then, as they approach a seal resting on an ice floe, the clicks stop. The ocean goes dead quiet. Scientists call this a sonar blackout. For the prey, the silence is deceptive comfort, the auditory equivalent of calm before an ambush. For the orca, it is the art of weaponizing absence. Deprived of their own echolocation, the whales switch to visual tracking, using the faint shimmer of light refracted through the ice and the vibrations of water displaced by the seal's movements. Their internal map of the world persists even in sensory darkness, a mental model updated through memory, teamwork, and spatial reasoning. Then, with chilling precision, the pod forms a line abreast. A coordinated surge begins. They swim side by side, powerful tails displacing water in a synchronized rhythm. A rolling wave builds, small at first, then steepening as the whales angle upward beneath the flow. The sudden crest strikes like a battering ram, lifting and tipping the ice until the seal loses its grip and slides into the waiting jaws. This is wave wash hunting, a technique perfected only by certain orca pods in the Antarctic. It is not instinctual across the species, it is cultural. Calves learn it by imitation, practicing with floating kelp or small chunks of ice. Adults repeat the motion in what researchers have described as training drills, rehearsals with stunned prey, where the kill is delayed, the technique refined. It is learning expressed through violence, repetition, and play. This level of coordination demands communication far beyond mere instinct. Yet the language of orcas is not universal. Each pod possesses a unique dialect, a collection of calls, whistles, and pulse patterns that serve as both family identity and operational code. Orcas from different regions cannot easily speak to one another, much like human tribes separated by centuries of linguistic evolution. This cultural divergence extends to hunting methods, prey choices, and even social rituals. In the Pacific Northwest, resident pods feed exclusively on salmon and use high-frequency calls in open water where stealth is unnecessary. In contrast, transient orcas, marine mammal hunters, operate in near silence, their clicks and calls reduced to whispers to avoid detection by sound-sensitive seals. The difference between these ecotypes is not genetic alone, it is behavioral inheritance, passed down through generations like human traditions. The matriarch lies at the center of this transmission. She is the keeper of memory, the one who remembers where the ice cracks first in spring, where the salmon run thickest, and where the waves break strongest for hunting seals. Within her mind lies an atlas of survival written across decades. When she dies, the loss reverberates beyond grief. A matriarch's death can erase an entire hunting technique from a lineage. In one documented case, a pod in the North Pacific lost its leader, and within a few years, the younger orcas abandoned coordinated seal ambushes entirely, reverting to simpler fish hunts. The cultural knowledge, the precise synchronization, the silent approaches, the choice of timing relative to tide and light, vanished with her memory. Intelligence, unlike instinct, dies with the individual. Evolution builds the body. Culture sustains the mind. Orca silence is never random. It is a chosen state, a tactical void. During hunts of larger prey, such as minke whales or grey whale calves, the silence precedes chaos. The pod divides into specialized units: scouts, blockers, and attackers. Communication occurs through body language: a flick of the dorsal fin, a shallow tail slap, a shift in swimming pattern. These signals ripple through the group in milliseconds, the coordination so fluid it seems telepathic. Once the ambush begins, the silence explodes into a storm of sound, short-range clicks and pulsed calls that function as a combat code. The whales drive their quarry toward exhaustion, targeting weak spots with surgical efficiency. Then, just as quickly, the ocean returns to quiet. Silence, attack, silence again, a rhythm of precision that turns the hunt into an act of discipline rather than frenzy. To witness this choreography is to see intelligence expressed not in tools or technology, but in control. The orca's most fearsome weapon is not its teeth or strength, but its ability to decide when to be invisible. Biologically, its body is engineered for both endurance and power. Beneath the black and white patterning, that same counter-shading principle seen in sharks but inverted for contrast, lies a lattice of red muscle optimized for oxygen storage. The orca can dive for over 10 minutes and cover vast distances without surfacing. Its dorsal fin, towering like a sail, stabilizes the body during high-speed chases, while the tail flukes generate thrust capable of launching this 6-ton predator entirely out of the water. But these mechanics serve a mind that calculates before it strikes. Every muscle contraction is the physical expression of an idea. In certain coastal regions, orcas have learned to exploit the physics of waves beyond the ice edge technique. Along Patagonia's shores, they time their attacks with incoming surf, beaching themselves partially to seize sea lion pups before sliding back into the tide. The timing is critical. Too early and the wave lacks force. Too late and the whale risks stranding. Calves are seen practicing these maneuvers under supervision, nudged and corrected by elders. It is a performance of apprenticeship, not instinct. The line between predator and pupil blurs. The younger whales rehearse until muscle memory fuses with intuition, until the motion becomes second nature. And even then, it remains a learned behavior, fragile, dependent on teaching. Remove the teachers, and the knowledge dissolves. Such learning is reinforced through play. Scientists observing pods have documented games of catch with fish, seal skins, or even drifting seabirds. To human eyes, it can appear cruel or frivolous. But these acts sharpen motor skills and reinforce coordination within the group. Sometimes orcas intentionally release stunned prey, only to recapture it again, a brutal drill in control and precision. It is in these moments that the line between social learning and strategic conditioning becomes visible. A pod that plays together hunts better together. Every practice session, every mock chase, is data gathering disguised as recreation. Beneath these behaviors lies a neurological foundation that rivals the most complex mammalian brains on Earth. The orca's brain-to-body ratio surpasses that of all non-human species except some dolphins. Its neocortex is deeply folded, an architecture associated with higher reasoning and emotional processing. Imaging studies suggest that orcas possess spindle cells, neurons linked to empathy and social intelligence in humans and great apes. This neurological sophistication explains the species' intricate cultural fabric and its extraordinary self-control. Silence for the orca is not just strategy, it is discipline born from awareness. The animal knows when sound betrays, when noise kills stealth. It chooses when to speak and when to disappear. Every hunt is a performance of collective cognition, where acoustics, memory and motion converge. In colder waters, the orcas modulate their sonar clicks to avoid alerting prey that can hear high frequencies. They may emit only a handful of clicks, each one aimed and timed to build a mental image of the target's path. The rest is prediction, a living physics problem solved in real time. When the pod resumes communication, the water itself becomes an extension of their nervous system. Sound waves carrying intent across meters of distance faster than any visual cue could. In a sense, the ocean becomes the orca's shared mind. This mastery of silence and sound also defines their relationship with humans. In regions where orcas were once hunted, the surviving pods adopted permanent acoustic restraint. They ceased vocalizing near boats even when unthreatened, a generational adaptation to danger that persists decades after whaling ended. Mothers teach calves not to echo near propeller noise, an inherited trauma written into behavior. Yet in places where they are safe, such as Norway's fjords, orcas are notably talkative, their calls echoing against icy cliffs. It is the same species, yet molded by memory, proof that intelligence is as much about what to withhold as what to express. To lose such memory is to unwrite history. When an experienced matriarch vanishes, the silence she once wielded becomes literal. Without her leadership, coordination falters, hunts fail, and the next generation grows up untrained. In wild populations, this has cascading effects. A pod that forgets how to hunt certain prey may shift its diet, altering predator-prey balance and even local fish populations. Culture, in this sense, is an ecological force. The death of one whale can echo through an entire food chain. As night falls over the polar sea, the camera pans across the water. A ripple moves against the fading glow, and a tall dorsal fin cuts the surface. The orca glides in near-perfect stillness, its white flank catching the last trace of light. No sound, no splash, no warning. Somewhere beneath, a seal exhales and hears nothing. The silence is its undoing. The orca's presence is revealed only by the momentary shimmer of turbulence as it passes, the whisper of muscle and will. In the great theater of the ocean, the orca stands as its most refined strategist. Its power lies not merely in strength or speed, but in choice. The decision to be silent, to vanish acoustically from existence until precision demands a return. In this realm where sound is life and silence is death, the orca proves that the absence of noise can be the loudest weapon of all. The seafloor is a restless museum of shapes and textures. Coral rubble, bottle glass, and shell fragments shimmer in the dappled sunlight, forming a chaotic mosaic that conceals a quiet genius beneath. The camera drifts low, scanning what appears to be a mound of detritus, until it moves. Pebbles slide aside. A shell tips. A sudden bloom of color ripples through sand and stone. The octopus has decided to reveal itself, but only barely. In the silent language of deception, this animal speaks fluently. For the octopus, every day is an exercise in improvisation. It is a creature without bones, but with an engineer's precision. Beneath that gelatinous exterior lies a mind that does not think in words or plans, but in possibilities. An octopus does not build a home once and defend it forever. It constructs, dismantles, and rebuilds in cycles of innovation. It carries its world in its arms, 8 autonomous, sensor-laden appendages that act as independent laboratories for exploration. Each arm contains its own cluster of neurons, capable of complex decision-making without waiting for instructions from the central brain. To call it an octopus brain is misleading. It is better described as a distributed network, a biological internet running in soft tissue. When one arm pulls a rock into place and another tests the stability of a shell wall, they are not simply obeying orders. They are collaborating. This decentralized intelligence gives rise to one of the animal kingdom's most remarkable toolkits. In tropical lagoons, divers have filmed octopuses constructing what researchers now call coconut forts. The process is both comical and astonishing. The octopus finds discarded coconut shells left behind by human activity and carries them awkwardly across the seabed. Each half is gripped under an arm, clanking together like armor plates as the creature scuttles along on its webbed tips. Once the octopus reaches open sand, it reassembles the halves into a portable fortress, a clamshell refuge it can retreat into when danger looms. No blueprint exists for this behavior. Each individual invents and refines it through trial and error, applying logic where instinct ends. The same ingenuity extends to stone and coral. Along reef ledges, octopuses gather small rocks and bits of shell, stacking them around their dens in miniature barricades. Some use these barriers to block the narrow entrance of their burrows, effectively sealing themselves in during rest. Others construct outward-facing walls, a defensive perimeter that slows down intruding eels or crabs. What seems like random clutter is actually strategic architecture, evidence of planning and resource use. Over time, these fortresses accumulate debris from past hunts, crab claws, fish bones, shells of vanquished clams. Scientists call these collections trophy middens. To the octopus, they may serve as camouflage or simply a record of survival. To an observer, they look like the remnants of an underwater workshop, each fragment a story of invention written in calcium. But the octopus's most extraordinary invention is itself. Its body is a living toolkit, a shape-shifting machine capable of mimicking the texture, color, and even reflectivity of its surroundings with breathtaking precision. Under its skin lies a complex system of pigment cells called chromatophores, each controlled by minute muscle fibers that expand or contract them at will. Above and below these are iridophores and leucophores, cells that manipulate light through microscopic layers, reflecting specific wavelengths to create shimmer or matte. When an octopus decides to vanish, it does not simply blend in, it reprograms the surface physics of its body in milliseconds. A single neural command can activate thousands of chromatophores simultaneously, turning flesh into gravel, coral, or kelp. On one side of its body, it may simulate the pale grains of sand, on the other, the speckled algae of a rock face. This asymmetrical camouflage fools both predators and prey, allowing the octopus to ambush from shadows or dissolve into coral. And it is not only color that changes, texture transforms too. Muscles beneath the skin inflate tiny bumps called papillae, sculpting the body into rough ridges, spines, or nodules. One moment the octopus is smooth as glass, the next it is barnacled like reef stone. The result is illusion elevated to survival art. This instant metamorphosis is not random mimicry, but situational awareness. The octopus does not simply copy its background. It perceives patterns of contrast and adjusts itself accordingly. Even though it is technically colorblind, its skin contains light-sensitive proteins similar to those in eyes, allowing local adjustments independent of sight. The skin, in effect, can see and react on its own, a form of distributed sensory intelligence that parallels its decentralized nervous system. This means camouflage can happen faster than conscious thought. The body decides before the brain deliberates. Yet the octopus's intelligence extends far beyond disguise. When it chooses to move, the entire ocean becomes a puzzle to solve. Each obstacle, a coral head, a predator, a current, demands a new solution. The octopus does not swim in straight lines. It folds and unfurls like liquid geometry, streaming through crevices smaller than its own eyes. Its boneless body can compress to a fraction of its resting volume, flowing through gaps barely larger than a coin. Every escape is a lesson in applied physics. Friction, water pressure, and leverage all accounted for in real time. In captivity, octopuses have become notorious escape artists, slipping through filtration pipes, lifting tank lids, and even memorizing the schedule of human caretakers. They learn to unscrew jars, dismantle latches, and distinguish individual faces. But these behaviors are not mere curiosity. They are rehearsals for survival. In the wild, similar problem-solving allows them to raid lobster traps and escape nets. What humans call a jailbreak is simply the continuation of their evolutionary design. The ocean, after all, is a world of cages, coral labyrinths, predator ambushes, tide pools that close like prisons. To live here, an octopus must be its own locksmith. Inside the den, the camera lingers on the creature's quiet laboratory. A crab shell is turned over, inspected by a probing arm. Another arm rolls a pebble against the current to test its resistance. The octopus is not idle, it is analyzing. Its suckers, each equipped with thousands of chemical receptors, taste and feel simultaneously. This allows it to taste water gradients, identify toxins, or recognize the scent of prey hiding beneath sand. Each arm processes this information locally, sending refined data back to the central brain. The effect is near instantaneous multitasking. 8 arms, 8 processors, 1 intent. Survival through adaptation. But the most extraordinary adaptation lies deeper, in its very genetic machinery. Unlike any other large-brained animal, the octopus can edit its own RNA on the fly. In most species, DNA defines a fixed blueprint, and RNA merely transcribes that code. In the octopus, RNA becomes a dynamic system of real-time modification. It can alter the expression of proteins involved in neural function, effectively rewiring its nervous system to meet immediate environmental demands. In colder waters, for instance, it may modify ion channels in neurons to maintain optimal signaling speed. This is not evolution by generation. It is evolution by thought, a molecular improvisation that rewrites biology's rules. Scientists liken it to a firmware upgrade running while the machine is active. No other creature has weaponized flexibility at such a fundamental level. This ability helps explain their rapid learning and resilience. Each new challenge, a different prey, a novel trap, a shifting habitat, can trigger molecular reconfiguration that enhances problem-solving. In a sense, the octopus is not one fixed animal, but an evolving program. Its very brain chemistry is fluid, as mutable as the skin that cloaks it. Such plasticity comes at a cost: shorter lifespans, unstable reproduction, and immense metabolic demand. But for an animal that lives fast and dies young, adaptability is worth the price. When predators like moray eels or sharks threaten, the octopus's toolkit unfolds with ruthless efficiency. A puff of ink clouds the water, not mere smoke, but a biochemical smokescreen loaded with melanin and mucus that confuses smell as well as sight. The octopus uses this instant curtain to vanish, often doubling back through its own ink to hide its escape route. If cornered, it might eject a decoy shape of itself, a dense, inky silhouette mimicking its own body. This pseudomorph fools predators into attacking the shadow, while the real octopus slips away unseen. The combination of chemistry, deception, and agility turns flight into artistry. Yet survival is not always escape. Some octopuses stand their ground. When a den is attacked, the resident may brace its arms against the entrance and harden its body using hydrostatic pressure, turning soft tissue into makeshift armor. The chromatophores darken, the papillae raise like thorns, and the animal becomes a rock. To the predator, it appears that the octopus has simply vanished into the landscape. In truth, the landscape itself has come alive. Every adaptation, every piece of this toolkit is born from vulnerability. The octopus has no bones, no spines, no speed to outrun a shark. Its defense is intellect, its weapon, invention. Across coral reefs, kelp forests, and abyssal plains, octopuses have learned to manipulate their environment rather than be shaped by it. They are the ocean's hackers, rewriting the code of existence one experiment at a time. As the camera pulls back, the octopus emerges once more from its fortress. The light shifts, color ripples across its mantle like oil on water. It surveys the world it has built, a barricade of shells, a cache of trophies, a labyrinth of escape routes. To the casual observer, this might seem like instinct. To the scientist, it is cognition sculpted by millions of years of selective pressure. To the octopus, it is simply living, a daily jailbreak from the limits of its own body and the dangers of its realm. In the grand narrative of evolution, bones were once considered an advantage. Yet here, in the restless quiet of the seafloor, the boneless reign. The octopus survives not through strength or armor, but through improvisation, a ceaseless dialogue between body and mind. Every shell it stacks, every color it conjures, every neural pathway it edits, speaks of one truth. Freedom, in the ocean, belongs to those who can reinvent themselves faster than the world can trap them. The tropical shallows hum with invisible energy. Sunlight drips through the turquoise surface, scattering across coral heads and rippling sands in golden fragments. Tiny fish flash like coins in the current, hermit crabs scuttle through glassy shells, and beneath it all, something far smaller and infinitely more dangerous prepares for impact. Inside a burrow lined with coral rubble, the mantis shrimp flexes its raptorial arms. It is a creature that hunts with the physics of thunder. At first glance, the mantis shrimp looks almost playful, a kaleidoscope of colors alive under the water's skin. Its carapace glows in blues, greens, and reds so vivid that they seem digitally enhanced. Yet this flamboyant armor conceals a biological weapon of mythic proportions. The mantis shrimp is not a shrimp at all, but a stomatopod, an ancient lineage of predators whose ancestors once roamed the seas before dinosaurs drew their first breath. And among all marine hunters, none wields a weapon quite like this one. The creature's club-shaped appendages, thick, folded, and spring-loaded, are biological hammers designed for destruction. When a mantis shrimp strikes, it unleashes a blow that travels faster than a bullet from a handgun. Scientists have measured speeds exceeding 80 kilometers per hour underwater, a feat that, in the dense resistance of seawater, is almost inconceivable. The acceleration is so extreme that the surrounding liquid cannot move aside fast enough. A pocket of vacuum forms at the leading edge of the strike, collapsing instantly in a process known as cavitation. This implosion generates not just a shockwave, but also a flash of light and a burst of heat approaching several thousand degrees Celsius. It is as though the mantis shrimp conjures miniature lightning from the sea itself. To watch this event in slow motion is to witness violence rendered into art. The claw launches forward in a blur, striking shell, coral, or carapace. A faint bubble forms, brightens, and vanishes in a silent flare. Even if the blow misses its mark, the shockwave alone can stun or kill prey. For the small creatures of the reef, snails, crabs, and clams, the mantis shrimp is not just a predator but an earthquake in miniature. Their shells fracture, shatter, and implode under the force. It is no wonder that aquarists call them thumb splitters. The physics of their punch is so powerful that it can crack aquarium glass. But raw power in nature rarely evolves without restraint. The mantis shrimp's existence balances between creation and self-destruction. Each strike carries the risk of recoil, damage to its own exoskeleton, tendons, or joints. To mitigate this, the creature's body has evolved one of the most sophisticated biomechanical designs on Earth. The clubs are built like composite armor, layers of crystalline chitin fibers stacked at alternating angles, similar to the cross-ply structure used in modern aerospace materials. When the impact shock travels through the club, the energy dissipates gradually through these layers rather than fracturing the whole structure. The result is a natural shock absorber so efficient that engineers study it for inspiration in designing aircraft panels and body armor. Still, even the most perfect machine needs testing. Before real combat, mantis shrimps often engage in ritualized sparring, a behavior marine biologists call shadow boxing. Two individuals, usually males, face one another, posture, and unleash rapid strikes at the water or at non-lethal parts of each other's shells. It is a form of calibration, a way to test strength, refine technique, and communicate dominance without inflicting fatal damage. These bouts resemble fencing more than fighting, each blow measured and precise. If one combatant yields, both survive. The ritual prevents catastrophic injury and preserves a population of individuals capable of reproducing. It is the evolutionary equivalent of practicing restraint with a loaded weapon. What makes these interactions even more extraordinary is the layer of visual communication involved. The mantis shrimp's eyes are among the most advanced visual organs in the animal kingdom. Each eye operates independently and contains up to 16 types of photoreceptor cells, compared to the 3 found in humans. They can detect ultraviolet, infrared, and most remarkably, polarized light. This polarization vision allows them to see patterns and angles of reflection invisible to other animals, including predators. For mantis shrimps, the reef is not merely colorful, it is coded with hidden information. The species' body and armor are laced with polarization reflective patches, iridescent signals that flash at precise wavelengths. During courtship or territorial disputes, these markings shift with subtle changes in posture, broadcasting information that only another mantis shrimp can read. To other reef inhabitants, the display is meaningless shimmer. To a rival, it is a sentence written in polarized light. I am ready to fight. I am stronger. Step closer and see. This secret communication network ensures that mantis shrimps can negotiate hierarchies without alerting predators to their presence. It is stealth diplomacy conducted through light physics. Yet this vision is not only for social ritual, it underpins their hunting strategy. When a mantis shrimp surveys its environment, it perceives prey and terrain in polarized dimensions. The glossy shell of a crab reflects polarized light differently from dull sand or algae. Even the faint sheen of muscle tissue under a shell registers distinctly. This ability to detect hidden contrast allows the mantis shrimp to locate prey buried beneath sediment or hiding in crevices. The world it sees is a coded battlefield where every shimmer reveals a vulnerability. Despite its predatory nature, the mantis shrimp is not a reckless killer. It is an architect and a strategist. Its burrow is a multi-purpose structure, a home, ambush post, and defensive bunker. Inside, the mantis shrimp meticulously arranges stones and coral fragments, sometimes sealing the entrance with rubble when resting or molting. Molting is its most vulnerable period. The newly shed exoskeleton takes days to harden, and during that time, the animal relies on stealth and architecture for survival. In this state, even the ocean's lightning maker must hide. Ecologically, the mantis shrimp's violence sustains balance. By breaking shells and consuming crustaceans, it regulates populations of reef grazers that might otherwise overconsume algae or corals. The calcium fragments left behind from its meals become raw material for other organisms, building blocks for new shells and coral growth. Destruction becomes recycling. In the quiet rhythm of the reef, even devastation has its ecological place. Its anatomy is a paradox of sensitivity and strength. The raptorial arms are controlled by saddle-shaped structures, spring-loaded latches made of elastic chitin that store mechanical energy before each strike. This design operates much like a crossbow. Muscles contract slowly to load the latch, then release suddenly, converting stored potential energy into explosive motion. The energy efficiency of this mechanism is extraordinary. If scaled to human size, the strike would be powerful enough to hurl a baseball into orbit. Yet the mantis shrimp uses it with restraint, applying only as much force as needed to achieve the kill. Within this power lies another form of intelligence, the ability to assess targets and adjust force. Studies have shown that mantis shrimps deliver lighter blows to soft-bodied prey like worms or fish, conserving energy and avoiding unnecessary wear on their clubs. When facing armored prey such as snails or crabs, the strikes increase in velocity and frequency until the target fractures. This behavior implies sensory feedback and adaptive control, traits once thought too advanced for invertebrates. Evolution has endowed this small creature not only with the weapons of a warrior, but with the judgment of an engineer. Beyond the reef, mantis shrimps have captured scientific imagination for reasons that extend far beyond zoology. The microstructure of their striking arms has inspired research in bioengineering, materials science, and robotics. Engineers now mimic the helicoidal arrangement of fibers in mantis shrimp armor to design impact-resistant composites for aircraft and vehicles. Even their visual system, capable of detecting circular polarization, has potential applications in cancer detection and optical communication. What began as curiosity about a small, aggressive crustacean has evolved into a study of nature's own engineering brilliance. But within their world, the physics remain personal. A mantis shrimp does not think of materials science or innovation. It knows only rhythm, the quiet patience before motion, the stored energy waiting to ignite. In its burrow, the creature grooms its clubs, striking the substrate in short bursts that crackle like distant thunder. Each movement is both exercise and maintenance. Every few minutes it flexes, calibrates, then stills again. Even in calm, it hums with potential. When the strike finally comes, it is over before the human eye could blink. The target, a crab grazing near the entrance, never perceives danger. The mantis shrimp lunges, the club arcs forward, and the world flickers with invisible light. A pulse of heat flashes through the water, a micro-explosion no larger than a fingernail but powerful enough to fracture glass. The prey crumples lifeless, and the hunter drags it into shadow. In the aftermath, nothing stirs. The coral resumes its gentle pulse, the sand settles, and the ocean swallows the evidence. Only high-speed cameras reveal what truly occurred. A strike powered by physics, illuminated by heat, and followed by silence. The mantis shrimp vanishes back into its den, a living contradiction, vibrant yet violent, small yet world-altering. In the grand calculus of the reef, it is both artisan and executioner. Each blow reshapes matter, each bubble births light, each shimmer encodes a language unseen by others. The mantis shrimp's world is one of constant translation, energy into motion, light into meaning, destruction into survival. It is proof that in the smallest corners of the sea, evolution can forge miracles that mimic the cosmos itself. Tiny stars born, again and again, from the strike of a creature no longer than a human hand. The tide recedes with the precision of a heartbeat. The mangrove forest stands half submerged, its tangled roots gripping the sediment like skeletal fingers. As the last of the daylight seeps from the water, the shallows turn from turquoise to copper and then to the murky blue of oncoming night. Between the roots, shadows move, slow, deliberate, unhurried. The box jellyfish drifts into view. Its bell is nearly invisible, a ghostly cube trailing silk threads that shimmer faintly in the dim light. The water around it is still, yet danger radiates through every filament. It is the most venomous creature on Earth, and it does not need a brain to kill. To the casual observer, the box jellyfish looks passive, a transparent balloon adrift in warm tropical waters. But this impression is an illusion of simplicity. Beneath that gelatinous calm lies a biological machine of extraordinary precision, tuned by millions of years of refinement. Its body is not a random blob of tissue. It is an integrated system that senses, computes, and reacts with mechanical efficiency. Each of its four sides bears a sensory cluster known as a rhopalium, and each rhopalium carries 6 eyes, 24 in total. Together, these organs allow the jellyfish to see, navigate, and even make decisions in an environment where most creatures drift at the mercy of the current. The eyes themselves are varied in design. Some detect only light and shadow, while others form rudimentary images sharp enough to recognize obstacles like mangrove roots or the silhouettes of fish. The most complex pair possesses lenses, corneas and retinas, strikingly similar to those found in vertebrates. Yet all of this sophistication operates without a brain. The box jellyfish's nervous system is decentralized, spread across a ring of neural tissue around the bell's margin. This diffuse arrangement allows it to process visual input and adjust movement instantly, without needing a central command center. In effect, its body is its mind, a distributed intelligence suspended in gelatin. As the camera follows the jellyfish's movement, it becomes clear that it is not drifting aimlessly. The bell pulses rhythmically, propelling it forward with purpose. The 24 eyes work in coordination, scanning for vertical patterns, the outlines of mangrove roots, pier pilings, or the faint reflections of moonlight on the surface. At dusk, this vision guides the jellyfish through one of its most critical daily migrations. It retreats from open water into the labyrinth of coastal shallows, avoiding strong currents that could carry it offshore. Here, in calmer eddies, it hunts. Its prey, small fish, prawns and zooplankton, are abundant near the mangrove fringe, where nutrients accumulate and visibility fades. The jellyfish's tentacles trail like invisible tripwires, each lined with thousands of nematocysts, microscopic harpoons coiled within capsules of venom. When touched, these harpoons fire in less than a millionth of a second, penetrating skin, scales, or shell. The venom floods the victim's bloodstream, overwhelming nerve and muscle function almost instantly. Small animals die before they can twitch. To humans, a brush with these filaments can induce cardiac arrest in under 5 minutes. It is execution at the speed of chemistry. The venom itself is a complex cocktail of proteins and enzymes evolved to attack multiple physiological systems simultaneously. Some components target ion channels in muscle cells, forcing them into continuous contraction until they fail. Others disrupt the electrical signaling between nerves and heart tissue, effectively silencing the pulse. This dual assault is what makes box jellyfish stings so uniquely lethal. The victim's body turns against itself, collapsing from within. Yet despite its potency, the venom's true evolutionary purpose is not cruelty, but efficiency. The jellyfish cannot chase prey. It must immobilize instantly, or its meal drifts away. Even its hunting strategy is dictated by physics and light. Under the waxing moon, the jellyfish positions itself in predictable corridors known as kill lanes. These are strips of water where tidal currents and reflected light funnel schools of plankton and fish. The jellyfish aligns its bell and tentacles within this moving highway, letting the flow deliver victims directly into its reach. Each night the same pattern repeats, a silent, invisible gauntlet through which life must pass. Scientists studying these behaviors have observed that box jellyfish respond to changes in lunar illumination and tide strength, adjusting their hunting depth and positioning accordingly. The moon, in a sense, acts as a metronome for their predatory rhythm. Yet for all its precision, the jellyfish's arsenal comes with ecological cost. The venom's potency makes it one of the few animals feared by virtually every other creature in its habitat. Sea turtles, with their thick skins, are among the only predators capable of eating it safely. Even fish that share its waters instinctively avoid its presence, detecting its chemical cues long before contact. The result is a kind of accidental dominance, an apex predator by deterrence alone. The true horror of the box jellyfish's power, however, is reserved for the rare human encounter. Most swimmers never see it. The bell is transparent, the tentacles nearly invisible. A single brush can deliver enough venom to kill multiple adults. In northern Australia, where these jellyfish frequent estuaries and beaches, medical teams have learned that immediate response is the difference between agony and death. The initial sting may burn only briefly, but the real pain, the Irukandji syndrome, comes later. Named for another small venomous jellyfish, this delayed reaction includes excruciating muscle cramps, skyrocketing blood pressure, and relentless anxiety so severe that victims often beg for sedation. The venom triggers a flood of catecholamines, the body's own stress hormones, pushing the cardiovascular system to its limits. For decades, folklore surrounding jellyfish stings produced dangerous myths. That urine or alcohol could neutralize the venom, or that scraping the skin would remove the tentacles safely. In truth, these methods worsen the injury by stimulating more nematocysts to fire. The real first aid is surprisingly simple. Vinegar, ordinary acetic acid, deactivates unfired stinging cells, halting further envenomation. Applied immediately, it can mean the difference between a painful recovery and a fatal outcome. Modern research also emphasizes immobilization and the use of pressure bandages in severe cases to slow venom spread until antivenom can be administered. These practical measures, refined through hard experience, illustrate that even the deadliest marine weapons can be mitigated with understanding rather than panic. As the night deepens, the jellyfish continues its slow patrol, its tentacles fanning like translucent curtains. Each pulse of the bell creates a silent rhythm. Draw, drift, draw again. The 24 eyes remain active, even in near darkness. Some are directed upward, tracking the moon's glow. Others look sideways, avoiding roots and debris. Despite lacking a brain, the jellyfish demonstrates clear navigation, turning when it nears obstacles, adjusting depth to stay within preferred salinity zones. This behavior reveals an astonishing truth. Coordination and awareness need not depend on a central consciousness. Distributed networks of neurons can perform complex tasks autonomously, a principle echoed in modern robotics and artificial intelligence. The box jellyfish is, in effect, a living algorithm. Its life cycle, too, reflects quiet mastery of adaptation. The adult medusa, the bell-shaped hunter, is only one stage in its existence. After reproduction, eggs settle onto the seafloor and develop into tiny sessile polyps that attach to hard surfaces. These polyps can reproduce asexually, budding off new medusae when conditions are right. In times of scarcity, they remain dormant for months, even years, waiting for temperature and light to signal abundance. This alternating rhythm between anchored and free-living forms ensures the species' persistence across environmental cycles that would extinguish less adaptable life. In the calm after the tide turns, the box jellyfish drifts toward the open channel. The moonlight flickers through its bell, refracting into pale blue halos. Small fish scatter at its approach, sensing the faint electric potential emanating from its tentacles. It glides with such precision that it seems to calculate every movement, though no neuron inside it thinks in any human sense. It is pure response, pure design. In this simplicity lies its genius. The box jellyfish does not waste energy on curiosity or memory. It has no need for thought, only execution. Its 24 eyes survey, its tentacles detect, and its venom concludes. Everything else, pain, hesitation, reflection, belongs to higher minds burdened by awareness. The jellyfish exists only in the present, perfectly adapted to the physics of water, light, and life. By dawn, it will retreat once more into deeper water, its lethal threads retracting as the sun brightens the surface. The mangrove shadows will fill with small fish again, unaware of the sniper that hunted here hours before. The tides will shift, the moon will rise, and the process will begin anew. In the hierarchy of the sea, intelligence often disguises itself not as thought, but as precision. The box jellyfish, the brainless sniper, proves that nature does not always require complexity to achieve mastery, only refinement. Each night it patrols its liquid battlefield with unerring aim, striking through light, tide, and silence. It kills without malice, guided by a system so elegant that even human science has yet to replicate its efficiency. In a world built on currents and chemistry, the box jellyfish reigns as the quiet perfection of biological design, a hunter that thinks without thinking and kills without ever seeing its own brilliance. The sea is glassy calm beneath the tropical sun, an endless expanse of turquoise broken only by the faint shimmer of wavelets. A solitary ripple moves against the stillness, long, slender, and deceptively delicate. It is not a fish. It is a hunter armed with venom potent enough to fell a dozen men. The sea snake glides with fluid grace, its body moving in slow, elegant S-curves beneath the surface. It seems peaceful, almost ornamental, But its design hides one of the most remarkable physiological engines in the marine world, a lung that not only breathes, but also hunts. Unlike most snakes, which inhale and hold air only briefly, sea snakes have adapted their lungs into instruments of fine control and endurance. Inside their bodies, the lung stretches nearly the entire length of the torso, far longer than in any land-dwelling serpent. This elongated organ serves multiple purposes. It stores oxygen for long dives, acts as a flotation device, and functions as a delicate counterbalance system that allows the animal to hover in water without sinking or floating uncontrollably. With subtle contractions of its muscles, a sea snake can adjust internal air pressure, rising or falling through the water column with the precision of a submarine's ballast tanks. Every breath becomes a navigational tool. But even this vast internal lung is not the snake's only respiratory advantage. Sea snakes have evolved a form of cutaneous breathing, the ability to absorb oxygen directly through their skin. Their blood vessels run unusually close to the surface, enabling the exchange of gases between the surrounding seawater and their bloodstream. Experiments have shown that some species can meet nearly a quarter of their oxygen needs this way, allowing dives lasting up to 2 hours without surfacing. The balance between lung storage and skin respiration turns the snake into a master of patience, capable of lingering near reefs or under ledges where prey must eventually appear. The camera follows one as it glides over a coral slope descending into blue haze. Its scales shimmer with iridescent patterns, a warning and camouflage in one. Many species, such as the banded sea crate, display black and white rings that make them visible in open water, but disruptive against patchy light and shadow. Others, like the olive sea snake, bear muted tones that match the sand and coral around them. Each color scheme is a compromise between stealth and signal, blending into the environment to ambush fish, while reminding potential predators, such as sharks or eels, of the cost of curiosity. The sea snake's venom is a marvel of economy. Its neurotoxins act faster and with greater efficiency than those of most terrestrial snakes. The venom targets nerve endings and muscle receptors, shutting down movement almost instantly. Yet sea snakes rarely deliver full doses. Their fangs are short, their venom metered. This precision reflects an energy-saving strategy. Venom is metabolically expensive to produce, and unnecessary waste could mean the difference between survival and starvation. When a small fish darts within range, the strike is so quick it appears as a blur. The snake's jaws open, fangs extend, and the fish stiffens before it can register the hit. The predator holds its catch gently, waiting for paralysis before swallowing. Then, with a slow wave of its body, it resumes its silent patrol. Life in salt water, however, poses a constant chemical challenge. The ocean is both the sea snake's home and its enemy. Drinking seawater directly would dehydrate it through osmosis, but the snake's body has solved this problem with a set of specialized sublingual glands located beneath the tongue. These glands excrete concentrated salt solution, allowing the animal to regulate its internal salinity and maintain hydration despite its surroundings. Each flick of the tongue, a gesture borrowed from its land ancestors, is not merely for scent detection, but also part of a delicate salt purging process. Evolution has sculpted a reptile that functions like a living desalination plant. As the day fades, the sea begins to change character. Schools of silvery anchovies flash near the surface, pursued by larger fish. The sea snake watches from below, suspended mid-water. It is not constrained by gills or fixed buoyancy like its competitors. Its internal lung adjusts in quiet pulses, keeping it motionless while everything else around it fights the tide. The longer it can wait, the better its chance to intercept prey, or avoid its own hunters. The ocean, for all its apparent openness, is a world defined by patience, and few creatures have mastered the art of waiting quite like this. During the breeding season, that patience gives way to chaos. The warm shallows teem with writhing shapes as males pursue receptive females in tangled clusters. Driven by pheromones diffused through water, the snakes mistake any elongated form, even the flippers of divers or the fins of passing fish, for potential mates. This is the origin of the so-called attacks recorded by startled swimmers. The sea snakes are not aggressive. They are confused, responding to chemical cues that override caution. Males may approach curiously, flicking tongues and coiling briefly before realizing the error. Once the confusion clears, they retreat. It is a reminder that much of what we perceive as threat in wild animals is often misunderstanding magnified by human fear. Mating itself is perilous. Males compete in twisting duels, their bodies knotting in underwater combat. The victor secures a grip behind the female's head, aligning his body along hers in an intricate dance that can last hours. The female must surface periodically for air, and the male must follow, synchronizing each ascent with hers to avoid drowning. Their cooperation in this delicate balance hints at the evolutionary pressure shaping their behavior. Even amid rivalry and instinct, precision remains essential. When the breeding season ends, the ocean reclaims its order. Female sea snakes, many of them ovoviviparous, carry their developing young inside their bodies rather than laying eggs. This adaptation frees them from the need to return to land, completing their transformation into fully marine reptiles. At birth, the newborns emerge as miniature versions of their parents, already venomous and capable of swimming. Few survive long. Predation is intense and shelter scarce. Yet the few that do grow quickly, their lungs elongating, their skin adapting to breathe, their instincts sharpening. The cycle of silent hunters continues. The ocean currents dictate much of the sea snake's range and behavior. In certain regions, they form mass aggregations where nutrient-rich water upwells near continental shelves. These gatherings can number in the hundreds, each snake navigating by subtle cues of temperature and salinity. Moonlight, too, plays a role, influencing both prey movement and snake activity. On moonless nights, they hunt deeper, following bioluminescent flashes from disturbed plankton that betray the motion of prey. During full moons, they remain closer to structure, using coral shadows as cover from their own predators. The relationship between celestial cycles and feeding behavior is so finely tuned that scientists have called it a form of lunar rhythm ecology, where gravity, light, and biology converge. Every movement of the sea snake's body reveals engineering evolved to perfection. The tail is flattened laterally into a paddle, transforming it into a swimmer's fin. Tiny scales reduce friction, and a thin layer of mucus coats the surface, minimizing drag. Its entire body works as a single hydrodynamic lever, capable of fast strikes yet sustained gliding. The camera tracks one as it weaves between coral branches, then rises effortlessly toward the surface. It exhales a trail of bubbles, not in panic, but in timing. The snake's oxygen economy is exact. It surfaces only when necessary, inhales once and vanishes again. No wasted motion, no wasted breath. The simplicity of its lifestyle conceals complexity at every level. Each adaptation, the lung, the salt glands, the paddle tail, the cutaneous respiration, represents a solution to one of the ocean's countless challenges. Where fish rely on gills and buoyancy sacs, the sea snake achieves the same ends through re-engineering its reptilian anatomy. Its entire evolution could be summarized as an act of reverse colonization, a creature that once left the ocean to breathe air, now returning to it without surrendering the advantages of its past. As twilight deepens, the surface gleams with reflected starlight. The sea snake hovers just below it, suspended in blue-black quiet. Its internal lung, filled with air, balances it perfectly between gravity and buoyancy. Somewhere above, a small fish breaks the surface to gulp oxygen. The snake waits, immobile, calculating through instinct rather than thought. When the fish descends again, the hunter strikes upward with whip-like speed, its entire body acting as one seamless muscle. The kill is quick, almost clinical. Moments later, the snake coils slowly, digesting and conserving energy. Its heart rate drops, metabolism slows, and the lung reclaims its dominance. A chamber of stored life, allowing the predator to vanish into stillness once more. Around it, the ocean resumes its endless rhythm, indifferent and vast. The sea snake remains one of evolution's quiet triumphs, a reptile that defied boundaries and turned its breath into an ecological weapon. In the liquid world where gills reign supreme, it thrives through lungs alone, rewriting what it means to belong to the sea. It hunts by waiting, breathes by calculation, and drifts by design. Here, between air and abyss, it reminds us that mastery in nature does not always roar or race. Sometimes it simply breathes, long, slow, and lethal. The tide is low, and the lagoon glows with pale gold light. Shallow water shimmers across a field of sand ripples, each one sculpted by the gentle push and pull of the sea. Tiny fish dart between coral fragments and shells. The scene is tranquil, picturesque, the kind of place that invites bare feet. But beneath the surface, motionless and half buried in the silt, lies one of the ocean's most deceptive assassins. The stonefish does not swim, patrol, or stalk. It simply waits, disguised as decay itself. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing more than a piece of dead coral or a lump of algae-encrusted rock. The skin is mottled in shades of grey, brown, and sand, textured with bumps and ridges that mimic the surrounding seafloor. Filaments of algae grow along its back, encouraged rather than removed, because every bit of organic growth helps reinforce the illusion. Even its posture is a performance of lifelessness, eyes dull, fins folded, body rigid. The stonefish has perfected the art of becoming part of the landscape, what biologists call cryptic resemblance. But this disguise is not static. It is active camouflage, maintained through a combination of behavioral precision and physical adaptation. When currents shift or a passing fish stirs up the sand, the stonefish performs a sand jet reset. With a quick flex of its pectoral fins and gill covers, it shoots two concentrated bursts of water downward, clearing or rearranging the sediment around it. The movement is fast, less than a second, and immediately after the fish settles again, sinking slightly deeper as if exhaling into the sand. The process creates a subtle halo around its body, an optical trick that softens edges and further erases its outline. To any nearby creature, the patch of sand appears untouched, featureless, unthreatening. This mastery of invisibility serves a simple but deadly function. The stonefish is an ambush predator, designed to strike only when the odds are absolute. It does not pursue prey. It engineers the kill zone. Small fish and crustaceans swimming close to the bottom often come within centimeters of its mouth. The mouth itself, when closed, is almost invisible, a downward tilted slit that blends with the body. But when triggered, it transforms in less than a blink. The jaws expand into a cavernous gape, drawing water and prey inward through a vacuum pulse that lasts just a few milliseconds. High-speed footage reveals the mechanics of this attack. The stonefish's skull is built with an intricate system of lever joints and tendons. When the jaw muscles contract, they snap open with explosive speed, creating negative pressure in front of the mouth. The surrounding water rushes in to fill the void, carrying the unsuspecting victim directly into the predator's throat. There are no teeth required for the initial capture, only suction, physics, and precision. The entire strike happens faster than the human nervous system can process. Even when slowed down to 1/100th of real speed, the motion appears instantaneous. Then, just as quickly, the mouth closes and the fish returns to stillness. Every feature of its anatomy is built for this performance. The eyes are positioned high on the head, allowing the fish to watch while nearly fully buried. They can rotate independently, scanning for movement even when the rest of the body remains immobile. The dorsal fin spines, 13 in number, are rigid, sharp, and connected to venom glands located deep within the flesh. Each spine operates like a hypodermic needle, hollow at the tip, sheathed in skin, and capable of delivering venom under pressure. When something presses down, a careless predator, or more often, an unfortunate human foot, the sheath slides downward, and the spine punctures the skin, injecting a dose of toxin directly into the tissue. For the stonefish, this defense evolved not out of malice, but necessity. A creature that relies on remaining motionless is vulnerable to being stepped on, bitten, or crushed by larger animals. Over millions of years, the stonefish's spines became its armor of deterrence. Its venom system is among the most complex in the marine world. The toxin, a cocktail of proteins called stonostoxin, verrucotoxin, and trachinolysine, attacks multiple physiological systems at once. It causes massive pain by activating nerve channels that release overwhelming waves of neurotransmitters, leading to muscle spasms, paralysis, and sometimes cardiovascular collapse. In humans, envenomation is described as one of the most excruciating experiences imaginable, a pain that radiates through the limb, surging like fire under the skin. If untreated, it can be fatal within hours. And yet, in its own ecology, the venom is not primarily for offense. It is rarely used in hunting. Fish do not need to be poisoned when suction alone guarantees the kill. The venom exists as insurance, a deterrent powerful enough to prevent predation altogether. Sharks, rays, and even crocodiles have been recorded avoiding stonefish, sensing danger through chemical cues long before contact. Only a few predators, like certain sea snakes, appear immune to its sting. In these cases, evolution plays its endless game of escalation: toxin versus tolerance, adaptation versus counter-adaptation. To understand just how deadly and deceptive this creature can be, scientists and documentarians have recreated the wrong step scenario in controlled environments. In slow-motion footage, the sequence begins with a diver's boot hovering just above the seafloor. The sand looks flat, featureless, harmless. Then the sole makes contact. There is resistance, a sudden give, and the next instant, the water erupts. The stonefish jerks upward, not to attack, but in reflex as the dorsal spines pierce the intruder. Within 1/10 of a second, venom sacs compress and discharge. In the footage, even with protective gear, the diver flinches instinctively from the idea of what that would feel like unprotected. This scene plays out more often than most realize. In tropical flats across Australia, Southeast Asia, and the Indo-Pacific, stonefish accidents remain a recurring hazard for fishermen and waders. The danger is not limited to reefs. Many stonefish live in sandy estuaries and even in river mouths where saltwater meets freshwater. When tides fall, they become stranded in shallow pools, surviving for hours out of water thanks to their thick skin and slow metabolism. A single wrong step from an unsuspecting human can turn a peaceful afternoon into a medical emergency. And yet, despite its fearsome reputation, the stonefish plays an important ecological role. By preying on small reef fish, it prevents population explosions that could destabilize coral ecosystems. Its camouflage contributes to a larger pattern of cryptic species that form the reef's defensive backbone, creatures that appear inert but collectively shape predator-prey dynamics. The stonefish's mere presence conditions other animals to be cautious, slowing their foraging and altering their movement patterns. In this way, the fish's invisibility and lethality regulate the tempo of the reef. Its ability to endure long periods of inactivity also makes it a biological outlier among fish. The stonefish's metabolism is extraordinarily low. When not feeding, its oxygen consumption drops to near minimal levels, allowing it to remain buried for days without significant movement. This energy conservation strategy makes it nearly immune to starvation and allows survival in fluctuating environments where other species perish. Its body can even tolerate brief exposures to air, an advantage in tidal flats that alternately flood and drain with the moon. When it does move, however, the motion is deliberate and almost eerie in its control. Using pectoral fins shaped like stubby limbs, it walks across the substrate in a slow crawl rather than swimming. The movement is methodical, allowing precise positioning before it reburies itself. Each relocation resets the stage, a new patch of sand, a new disguise, a new ambush point. Over time, the fish's skin collects debris, silt, and algae until its living surface becomes indistinguishable from the coral rubble itself. The line between organism and environment blurs completely. Beneath its apparent ugliness lies an organism of near-perfect engineering. The suction strike, the venom apparatus, the camouflage, each evolved independently yet functions in harmony. It is a masterclass in biological efficiency, energy minimized, risk reduced, outcome assured. Even the sand jet reset, an adaptation easily overlooked, demonstrates an understanding through evolution of how optics and perception work in a shallow water environment. The stonefish has not just adapted to the reef, it has become part of its physics. As the day fades, the lagoon changes color again. Shadows lengthen, and the golden shallows turn to bronze. The camera pans over the sand, where countless shapes hide in plain sight. Crabs, flounders, stingrays. Somewhere among them, a single stonefish lies in ambush, the faint outline of its spines barely visible through the sediment. A small damselfish drifts too close, curious, unaware. The strike comes with no warning, only a puff of sand. Then stillness. The predator does not move again. Its body resumes the guise of a rock, as though the event never happened. In this quiet theater of deception, beauty and danger coexist seamlessly. The stonefish is not the monster of shallow waters it is often painted to be. It is the embodiment of evolution's most ruthless rule: be invisible or die. Its camouflage is not simply a disguise, it is a weapon forged by stillness. In the tropical flats, where life and death are separated by centimeters, the corpse that waits beneath the sand is not a relic of decay. It is the reef's most efficient executioner, patient as stone and twice as unforgiving. The morning light over a Caribbean reef is a painter's illusion, gold filtering into turquoise, scattering across coral towers that shimmer with movement. Tiny chromis drift like sparks above staghorn corals. A juvenile parrotfish nibbles algae from a rock ledge, unaware of the slow, luxurious drift of danger approaching. Out of the blue shadow glides a lionfish, elegant, slow, and regal. Every fin unfurls like a silk banner. It does not chase, it does not hide. It invites. This is a predator that kills through beauty. The lionfish moves with the control of a puppet master. Its pectoral fins stretch outward and upward, a wide semicircle of spines and filaments forming what seems like a floating curtain. The effect is mesmerizing. The rays sway slightly with the current, catching the light in soft flashes of cream and rust. To the prey, these fins are neither fast nor threatening. They resemble the harmless undulations of a drifting anemone or seaweed frond. The fish that lingers too long, hypnotized by this living tapestry, soon finds itself enclosed. The lionfish completes its circle, closing the velvet net. Then, with a sudden expansion of its jaws, it inhales. A vacuum strike so swift and complete that the surrounding water seems to collapse inward. The prey disappears in a blink. This technique, known to marine biologists as a fin-fan corral, is one of the most distinctive predatory maneuvers in coral reef ecosystems. The lionfish's long, feathery fins are not just ornaments, they are functional barriers. By fanning them outward, the predator herds smaller fish and crustaceans into confined spaces. The behavior is often paired with subtle jetting movements of water from the gills, creating invisible pressure waves that push prey exactly where the lionfish wants them. The ambush is psychological before it is physical. Confusion replaces alarm. Curiosity replaces flight. In its native Indo-Pacific range, this technique evolved within an ecosystem that knows how to read it. Groupers, moray eels, and larger snapper species recognize the silhouette of a lionfish and give it wide berth. Small reef fish have learned that the shimmering fan of spines is no harmless display. But in the Western Atlantic, where lionfish were introduced accidentally in the late 20th century, the rules no longer apply. Here, on reefs from Florida to Venezuela, nothing recognizes the hypnotist. It glides among naive species that have no evolutionary memory of this danger, turning entire ecosystems into stages for a predator's performance. The lionfish's expansion in the Atlantic and Caribbean is one of the most dramatic examples of marine invasion in modern history. A few aquarium releases, perhaps only a handful of individuals, became the seed population for millions. With no natural predators, no resistance from native prey, and the ability to reproduce year-round, the lionfish multiplied exponentially. Females can release egg clusters every few days, each containing tens of thousands of embryos encased in a gelatinous mass that drifts with the current. Within a single year, an area once teeming with balanced diversity can shift towards silent imbalance. Beneath the surface, this transformation is visible in subtle but measurable ways. On reefs now dominated by lionfish, juvenile fish numbers drop sharply. Herbivorous species like damselfish and wrasse decline, leading to unchecked algal growth that smothers coral. The coral structures themselves weaken, losing their vibrant fish activity and becoming ghostly gardens of algae. The lionfish, meanwhile, remains unaffected, adaptable to depth, temperature, and salinity. It hunts at dawn, dusk, and even at night, relying not on speed but on its sensory precision. Its eyes, equipped with reflective layers for low-light vision, detect minute movements even in darkness. Its lateral line, a sensory system that registers pressure changes, allows it to track the motion of a shrimp behind a rock or a fish hidden under coral rubble. The anatomy behind its success is a study in refined lethality. Each of the lionfish's 13 dorsal spines, along with additional pelvic and anal spines, contains venom glands. The toxin is a potent mixture of proteins that cause extreme pain, swelling, and temporary paralysis in larger predators, or humans unlucky enough to brush against them. This defense evolved in the predator-rich Indo-Pacific, where even powerful hunters like sharks or groupers occasionally attempted an attack. In the Atlantic, however, it grants the lionfish near-complete immunity. Local predators have not learned the painful lesson that deters attack. But for all its dominance, the lionfish is not reckless. It hunts with coordination and restraint, often in small teams. Groups of 2 or 3 have been observed working together to corner prey against coral chimneys or into shallow crevices. One fish blocks the escape route, while another circles slowly, pressing the prey toward the confined space. When one strikes, the others wait their turn rather than competing. This cooperation is rare among reef fish and highlights an intelligence often underestimated. The lionfish is not simply reacting to hunger, it is planning, assessing, adjusting. In experimental conditions, lionfish have even been observed learning from experience, improving strike accuracy and timing over successive attempts. Their hunting range extends from shallow mangroves to depths exceeding 200 meters. In deeper zones, where light is scarce and current minimal, their fins become less a net and more a lure. The slow waving of those elegant spines mimics the movement of planktonic organisms, attracting small fish that mistake the predator for drifting food. The lionfish then performs its vacuum strike with the same elegance it uses in the shallows. It does not rush. It never misses. The evolutionary irony of the lionfish invasion is that its beauty, the very feature that drew humans to keep it in aquariums, became its weapon for global spread. Divers encountering the species in the Caribbean often remark on its apparent serenity, its unthreatening grace. In fact, that calm is confidence. Few creatures in the sea enjoy such immunity from attack. Even large sharks avoid them. On some reefs, juvenile lionfish hover in the open like butterflies among corals, completely unbothered by potential predators. The balance that nature once enforced through coevolution is gone, replaced by unchecked proliferation. But the story does not end in despair. Across the Caribbean and Western Atlantic, a new kind of predator has emerged to challenge the invasion: humans. Coastal communities have turned to organized hunting efforts known as lionfish derbies. Divers armed with spears or nets descend into the reefs to capture as many as possible, sometimes removing hundreds in a single day. The venomous spines make handling dangerous, but when properly cleaned, lionfish flesh is not only safe, it is delicious. Chefs in Florida, Belize, and the Bahamas now feature it as a sustainable seafood delicacy, transforming an ecological threat into an economic opportunity. The concept is simple: eat the invader. These derbies, though locally effective, reveal something deeper about humanity's role in marine ecosystems. They represent a rare reversal of the usual story, people becoming the controlling force not by accident but by design. Where once the introduction of a species caused collapse, now removal through human effort offers partial recovery. Studies show that reefs regularly cleared of lionfish see measurable rebounds in native fish populations within months. It is an uneasy alliance, evolution's patience met by human urgency. Back underwater, the lionfish's world remains serene and deadly. A school of juvenile grunts drifts too close to a coral chimney. A trio of lionfish positions themselves like silent guards, one below, two to the sides. Their fins spread into soft fans that corral the fish upward. There is no panic. The grunts hover, confused, surrounded by beauty. Then the lead lionfish exhales a pulse of water, driving the prey backward into the waiting mouths of its partners. 3 strikes, 3 kills, and silence again. The coral breathes. The velvet net closes and folds. In native waters of the Indo-Pacific, such moments are fleeting, balanced by predators and prey that have evolved alongside this hypnotist for millions of years. But in the Caribbean, the balance remains fragile. The lionfish's velvet net has extended across thousands of kilometers, its reach unchecked except where human intervention holds it back. The creature's story is a lesson in ecological cause and consequence. It teaches that beauty in nature is often the face of adaptation, and that evolution's artistry is not moral, only efficient. The lionfish did not intend invasion or dominance, it simply thrived where opportunity appeared. In its native reefs, it is a masterpiece of harmony, a graceful predator among equals. In foreign waters, it became a monarch of imbalance, ruling through elegance and ignorance alike. As the sun sets over the reef, the lionfish drifts once more into the shadowed coral labyrinth. Its fins sway like silk curtains in a fading light. The water is quiet, the illusion flawless. For the creatures that share this world, beauty has become the signal of death. And for those who study it, the lionfish remains the perfect paradox. A predator that conquers not with speed or strength, but with hypnosis, patience, and the velvet whisper of its own perfection. The sun hovers above a tranquil lagoon, its light fracturing into shimmering ribbons across the shallows. The seabed below is calm, the sand pale and fine as flour. A small shape glides slowly over it, unhurried, unarmed, and seemingly harmless. The pufferfish, round-bodied and modest, moves with the serenity of a creature without enemies. But beneath that calm exterior lies one of nature's most deceptive survival strategies. The puffer is a master of bluff, biology, and biochemistry, a soft-bodied creature capable of turning itself into an unchewable fortress, and, if that fails, a lethal dose of poison. To watch a puffer's transformation is to witness physics and physiology converge in seconds. When threatened, the fish draws water, or air if caught above the surface, into a highly elastic stomach chamber that expands like a balloon. Powerful muscles close off its esophagus and gills, trapping the inflating volume inside. The effect is immediate and astonishing. A small, teardrop-shaped fish swells into a hovering orb several times its original size, spines bristling outward from under the skin. Predators accustomed to swallowing their prey whole suddenly face an impossible geometry problem. The soft, bite-sized fish becomes a sphere, too wide for any mouth, too firm for any teeth. This defense mechanism evolved not as aggression, but as desperation. The puffer is naturally slow, its fins small and propulsion inefficient. Flight is rarely an option. Instead, it has perfected the art of the final deterrent. Inflation takes only seconds, but deflation, the controlled release of water through gills and mouth, can take several minutes. During this time, the fish drifts awkwardly, vulnerable but unassailable. Once the danger passes, it exhales slowly, folds its spines flat, and resumes its gentle patrol as though nothing had happened. The inflation is only part of the act. Beneath the skin lies a chemical weapon of extraordinary potency. The pufferfish carries tetrodotoxin, one of the deadliest natural substances known. Measured molecule for molecule, it is over 1,000 times more toxic than cyanide. A single individual can hold enough toxin to kill more than a dozen adult humans. Yet this venom is not produced by the fish itself. It is the result of a symbiotic partnership with marine bacteria that live in its tissues, Vibrio and Pseudomonas species that synthesize the toxin as part of their metabolism. Through its diet of small invertebrates, mollusks, and algae harboring these microbes, the puffer accumulates tetrodotoxin, storing it within its liver, skin, and reproductive organs. The relationship is mutually beneficial. The bacteria gain a stable home, while the fish gains a defense so absolute that few predators dare a second encounter. Tetrodotoxin's lethality lies in its molecular precision. It binds to sodium channels in nerve and muscle cells, halting the electrical impulses that control movement and heartbeat. For predators, ingestion often results in paralysis before digestion even begins. The effect is mercilessly fast and irreversible. A few species, such as certain sharks, sea snakes, and even other puffers, have evolved resistance, but most learn their lesson through death. Nature's instruction here is simple: one bite and never again. This biochemical arsenal has led to one of the strangest predator-prey dynamics in the sea: the taste test. Many reef predators, especially moray eels and groupers, appear to sample puffers cautiously. They nip, mouth, and immediately release them, as though testing whether the risk is worth the reward. Sometimes the puffer inflates mid-bite, lodging itself immovably in the predator's mouth, forcing release. Other times the result is fatal. Both animals die, the prey poisoned, the predator paralyzed. In this deadly experiment repeated across millennia, evolution has favored memory. Reef predators rarely mistake puffers twice. The toxins paradox extends to human culture. In Japan, the pufferfish, known as fugu, is a prized delicacy, prepared only by licensed chefs trained to move the deadly organs without contaminating the flesh. The margin for error is microscopic. Despite regulation, cases of poisoning still occur, some fatal. A grim reminder that even the most practiced hand cannot always outwit molecular precision. And yet this danger is part of the fascination. To eat fugu is to flirt with nature's boundaries, to experience a controlled brush with death. Ironically, this cultural reverence has turned an evolutionary deterrent into an object of human desire. In its natural environment, however, the puffer's life is not defined solely by defense. In some species, particularly those found in Japan's southern coastal waters, males transform into artists during breeding season. Underwater cameras have revealed one of the most remarkable mating rituals in the marine world: the creation of geometric sand mandalas on the seafloor. Over the course of several days, a male puffer works tirelessly to sculpt a circular pattern as wide as several meters, using only the movements of his fins. He alternates between rapid fin beats to carve ridges and slow sweeps to smooth valleys, creating a series of radiating spokes and concentric rings that appear almost mathematical in precision. The purpose of these ornate constructions is not merely aesthetic. The circular pattern acts as both courtship display and environmental engineer. When a female approaches, she inspects the structure's symmetry and the male's vigor in maintaining it. A perfect nest signals genetic fitness. The ridges and grooves also serve functional roles, channeling currents to concentrate fine sand in the center, where the eggs will later be laid. Once spawning is complete, the male guards the site, fanning oxygen-rich water over the eggs until they hatch. The mandala, fragile and temporary, is eventually erased by tides, leaving behind only hatchlings and the memory of a masterpiece. This behavior illustrates a rarely seen side of the puffer's nature, deliberate and creative rather than reactive. It transforms from balloon to sculptor, from toxic bluff to meticulous engineer. Such artistry demands fine control of motion, a sensitivity to current and texture that belies the species' clumsy reputation. In the quiet of the shallow seabed, the scene feels almost human in its intent, an animal shaping its environment not for survival alone, but for attraction, communication, and legacy. The camera lingers now on a different kind of scene, a young puffer drifting through a coral garden, nibbling on bits of sponge. Its coloration shifts subtly with mood and environment, lightening when relaxed, darkening when alert. The chromatophores in its skin expand and contract to alter tone, a minor adaptation compared to the flamboyant camouflage of cuttlefish, but useful nonetheless. Its eyes move independently, scanning in two directions at once, giving it a panoramic awareness of surroundings. Every motion is slow, deliberate, economical. There is no wasted energy in this fish's world. Even the bluff of inflation is calculated, a deterrent that is rarely needed but always ready. Across the Indo-Pacific and Caribbean reefs, puffers occupy an important ecological niche. By feeding on invertebrates that graze coral or bore into its skeleton, they help maintain reef health. Their parrot-like beaks, formed from fused dental plates, can crush snail shells and coral fragments, recycling calcium back into the ecosystem. Yet in places where their numbers grow unchecked, often due to overfishing of their predators, they can disrupt balance, consuming too many reef organisms and altering coral growth dynamics. The same defensive success that keeps them safe can, in excess, destabilize their environment. Viewed through the lens of evolution, the puffer's story is one of transformation through vulnerability. It began as a soft-bodied ancestor, slow, exposed, and easy target, and turned its weaknesses into strengths. Its body became both shield and signal, its poison both barrier and bargaining chip. In a world ruled by speed and aggression, it found survival in patience and precision. Every inflation, every bluff, every toxin molecule is part of a sophisticated survival economy. Spend little energy, make predators think twice. As evening descends over the lagoon, the puffer hovers near the sand, its round eyes reflecting the fading light. A shadow passes, the silhouette of a reef shark cruising above. For a moment, the puffer freezes. Then it inhales sharply, swelling into its defensive form. The shark veers away, uninterested in the gamble. When the danger passes, the puffer exhales, its body returning to its original shape. It resumes foraging as though nothing had happened, the entire drama condensed into a single, quiet breath. In the hierarchy of the reef, power often lies in illusion. The lionfish rules through beauty, the stonefish through invisibility, and the puffer through the promise of danger. It is the consummate actor, harmless in truth, deadly in consequence. Its defense is not aggression, but the threat of it. And that, in the grand calculus of evolution, is efficiency perfected. By nightfall, the puffer rests half buried in the sand, its fins twitching gently with the current. Around it, the reef hums with life, predators hunting, prey hiding, corals feeding. The puffer does neither. It simply waits, calm, inflated only with the quiet assurance that few will dare test its resolve. In a world defined by tooth and claw, it survives through performance, the small, unassuming fish that learned how to turn a breath into a weapon and a bluff into survival. The camera drifts through a cathedral of limestone and shadow. Light filters down through cracks in the reef ceiling, turning the water into ribbons of blue-green haze. The sand below is marked by faint trails, the soft brushstrokes of passing fins and drifting debris. Every few meters, the coral architecture changes from smooth arches to narrow crevices, places where water moves slowly and sound seems to thicken. These are the corridors of the moray eel, and somewhere inside them, a shape stirs. From the darkness of a hole in the rock, two eyes gleam. A head emerges, long and narrow, patterned with mosaics of olive and gold. The moray eel's mouth gapes open and shut in a slow, rhythmic motion. Not aggression, but respiration. Like many reef dwellers, it breathes by drawing water across its gills, and since it lacks the pumping muscles of most fish, it must keep its jaws in constant motion. The result is a look that unnerves even experienced divers, the perpetual grimace of an animal that seems to be sizing up the world for its next meal. But this mouth, fearsome as it appears, hides a secret that makes the moray eel one of the most remarkable hunters in the ocean. Deep within its throat lies another set of jaws, a second mouth capable of movement independent from the first. When the eel strikes, these pharyngeal jaws shoot forward to seize prey, pulling it down into the digestive tract. The mechanism is a biological marvel, something more commonly seen in science fiction than in nature. Unlike most fish, which create suction by expanding their oral cavity to draw prey inward, morays lack the space to do so. Their long, narrow skulls are designed for gripping, not suction. Evolution's answer was ingenious, a set of secondary jaws built from modified gill arches, complete with teeth and muscles that slide forward like a grappling hook. In slow motion, the sequence unfolds like a mechanical ballet. The moray lunges, clamping its outer jaws on a passing fish. Then, from deep inside the throat, The pharyngeal jaws thrust forward, seize the prey, and retreat, hauling it inward with peristaltic precision. Each movement is invisible to the naked eye, a hidden transaction that happens in less than a tenth of a second. This system allows morays to capture and swallow prey even in the narrow confines of the reef, where suction feeding would be useless. It is one of evolution's most elegant examples of form following function, and it places the moray among a select group of predators that hunt not with speed or size, but with engineering. As daylight fades, the reef begins to transform. The bustle of parrotfish and butterfly fish gives way to the slow pulse of nocturnal life. The moray leaves its crevice, gliding through the coral maze with sinuous grace. Its skin, thick and scaleless, secretes a layer of mucus that protects it from abrasion against rock and coral. This mucus sheath also helps reduce friction as the eel moves, letting it slip through openings no wider than its own body. The texture of its skin, rough under the microscope, traps a thin layer of water close to the surface, a form of natural lubrication that makes its movement appear almost liquid. The night patrol begins. Night. The eel moves along what could be called a limestone alley, one of the countless winding corridors carved by centuries of erosion and coral growth. These alleys serve as both hunting grounds and escape routes. To the eel, they are memory maps, familiar pathways encoded through repetition. Its senses are sharpened to suit the darkness. Lacking good eyesight, it relies on a sophisticated combination of smell and vibration detection. The nostrils, located at the tip of the snout, can pick up the faint chemical signatures of wounded prey meters away. Its lateral line system, a network of sensory pores along the body, registers minute shifts in water pressure, the flutter of fins, the pulse of a struggling crustacean. A flash of movement interrupts the stillness. A small fish darts for cover between coral heads. The eel pauses. Then, with a flick of its body, it glides closer. There is no chase, only positioning. In tight quarters, the moray's serpentine shape gives it an advantage that few predators possess. It can navigate the maze where larger hunters cannot follow. The eel hovers near the entrance of a crevice, jaws opening and closing in their steady rhythm. When the prey ventures just far enough into the open, the strike is instantaneous. The outer jaws clamp down, and the inner jaws shoot forward to complete the kill. The fish vanishes, leaving only a faint swirl of disturbed sand. But the moray is not always a solitary hunter. In some parts of the Indo-Pacific, a rare partnership unfolds between species, a cooperation that blurs the line between instinct and strategy. The moray eel and the roving grouper have developed an extraordinary hunting alliance, built on mutual benefit and an unspoken language of signals. When a grouper spots prey hiding in a crevice beyond its reach, it swims to the nearest moray and performs a distinct head-shaking gesture, sometimes combined with a short, rapid shimmy of the body. This signal, unique to the species, serves as an invitation to join forces. The eel responds by emerging from its den, understanding the cue as clearly as a pack hunter reads a companion's motion. Together, they approach the bolt hole where the prey hides. The grouper hovers outside, ready to ambush anything that flees, while the moray slithers inside to flush the victim out. The collaboration is astonishing in its precision. Neither animal can fully explain or even comprehend the partnership, yet it persists, passed down through generations by learned behavior. Studies have shown that both participants benefit. The grouper gains access to prey it could not reach, and the moray enjoys a share of the spoils from hunts that would otherwise yield little. This interspecies cooperation, confirmed in multiple grouper and moray populations, represents one of the most complex forms of communication ever documented among fish. Back along the reef slope, the eel continues its nocturnal circuit. Its hunting behavior has secondary effects on the ecosystem. By keeping populations of smaller reef fish and invertebrates in check, morays help maintain balance in the food web. Their predation also influences the hiding strategies of other animals, shaping the architecture of the reef itself over evolutionary time. Fish that share habitat with morays develop more cryptic coloration and faster escape responses, while crustaceans dig deeper burrows and retreat earlier at the scent of an eel. The predator's presence ripples outward, altering not just life, but behavior. In the quiet hours before dawn, the eel returns to its home crevice. It backs into the whole tail first, positioning itself so that only the head protrudes. This orientation is both defensive and practical. It allows the eel to monitor its surroundings while keeping the rest of its body shielded. The mucus coating its skin deters parasites and even prevents infection from minor wounds sustained in coral tunnels. Its metabolism slows, conserving energy until the next patrol. Unlike the fast-living predators that roam open water, morays operate on efficiency, minimal movement, maximum effect. Despite their fearsome reputation, morays rarely pose a threat to humans. Their bites, though powerful, occur mostly when provoked or startled in their dens. The jaws can crush crustacean shells and even bone, but in most encounters they prefer to retreat. Still, their physiology demands respect. The pharyngeal jaws that evolved for hunting in tight spaces can inadvertently lock onto fingers or tools when food is mistaken for prey. Divers who understand their behavior know to approach with caution, to admire, not intrude. From an evolutionary perspective, the moray eel's anatomy represents a remarkable deviation from the standard blueprint of fish design. Its elongated body, reduced fins, and second set of jaws all speak to a life adapted to confinement and ambush. Where most predators rely on speed, morays rely on reach. Where others chase, they infiltrate. This divergence has made them some of the most efficient hunters in the reef, thriving from the Red Sea to the Caribbean. Their presence in ecosystems is as old as the coral structures themselves, living fossils of a lineage that has perfected the art of narrow space predation. As daylight returns, the reef awakens again. Parrotfish grind at coral, wrasse weave through anemones, and rays stir the sand for buried mollusks. The moray remains hidden, its skin blending perfectly with the rock, the rhythmic gape of its mouth the only sign of life. For now, it is still. But when the sun fades and the reef once again descends into shadow, it will emerge, silent, sinuous and precise, to patrol its limestone alleys once more. In the theatre of coral life, the moray eel plays the role of both spectre and engineer, an unseen force shaping the habits of the creatures it hunts. Its anatomy tells the story of adaptation pushed to its limits, of a predator that learned to hunt without space, to swallow without suction, to strike with two mouths instead of one. In the dim corridors of the reef, where light seldom reaches and motion is everything, the moray reigns as evolution's most efficient ambush, a living embodiment of the ocean's dark ingenuity. Beneath the shimmering skin of a shallow reef, evolution has created something that defies the usual boundaries between animal, machine, and illusion. The cuttlefish, neither fish nor simple mollusk, but a cephalopod cousin of squid and octopus, drifts just above the sand, like a dream rendered in motion. Its body pulses with color, pattern, and texture, each second a new composition. It does not swim so much as hover, suspended by the undulating fins that fringe its mantle, silent and precise. To the casual observer, it is beautiful. To its prey, it is dangerous. And to scientists, it is one of nature's most sophisticated living projection systems, a deepfake organism capable of rewriting reality on its own skin. The story begins at the microscopic level. The cuttlefish's color-changing ability is built from 3 layers of specialized cells. At the surface lie the chromatophores, sacs of pigment that expand or contract to reveal hues of red, yellow, and brown. Beneath them sit iridophores and leucophores, mirror-like cells that reflect and scatter light to produce blues, greens, and whites. Together, these layers act as a biological display, each pixel of color controlled by tiny muscle fibers connected directly to the animal's nervous system. Unlike a chameleon, whose color shifts rely on hormonal changes that take seconds or minutes, the cuttlefish can rewrite its appearance in a fraction of a second. Neural impulses fire, muscles flex, and the body transforms instantly. But what makes this creature extraordinary is not only its color, it is texture. Across its mantle are clusters of microscopic muscles that raise and lower small bumps called papillae. With these, the cuttlefish can mimic not just the color, but the three-dimensional surface of its surroundings. Smooth coral becomes smooth skin. Rough sand becomes ridged flesh. The transformation occurs through muscular hydraulics, pressure changes that inflate papillae in complex combinations, like a sculptor reshaping clay in real time. A single individual can resemble coral one moment and open rock the next, its outline dissolving as though it were never there. This phenomenon, known as dynamic camouflage, is one of the most advanced forms of morphological control known in biology. For all its brilliance, camouflage is not the cuttlefish's only trick. Hidden in its skin is another communication system invisible to the human eye, a language written in light polarization. While we see color based on wavelength, many marine animals perceive polarization, the orientation of light waves. Cuttlefish skin, especially the iridophores, can manipulate this polarization independently of color, sending secret visual messages to others of their kind without alerting predators or prey. It is, quite literally, a secret ink channel, a visual spectrum built for those equipped to read it. Experiments have shown that cuttlefish use these patterns during courtship and territorial displays, flashing polarization contrasts invisible to everything but another cephalopod. To us, it looks like subtle shimmer. To them, it is private conversation. In the open shallows, the camera follows a male cuttlefish drifting toward a group of rivals. His body glows with high-contrast zebra stripes, each wave of dark and light pulsing in sequence. These rhythmic flashes are not random, they are declarations of dominance. The patterns ripple across the body at controlled frequencies, each frequency calibrated to the situation. Faster pulses for aggression, slower waves for curiosity. The other males respond in kind, their skins a kinetic battlefield of color and intent. The display is dangerous. Bright colors in the ocean are invitations to combat, but also to attraction. And this is where the cuttlefish's evolutionary genius takes another turn: deception through design. In the chaos of competition, some males deploy an extraordinary form of mimicry. On one side of their body, they maintain the bold, high-contrast display of a dominant male, ready to fend off rivals. On the other, they shift to the soft beige tones and subdued patterns of a receptive female. When viewed from the side of aggression, they appear as fierce competitors. From the opposite angle to the watching females, and to dominant males not paying close attention, they appear harmless, even alluring. This dual-sided signaling allows smaller, less dominant males to slip past the guard of larger rivals and mate in plain sight. It is a two-faced performance of evolutionary theater, a visual lie rendered in muscle and pigment. Scientists call this split signaling or dual deception, and it is one of the most cunning reproductive strategies in the sea. Studies of cuttlefish mating aggregations reveal that these sneaker males can achieve surprising success, often fertilizing as many eggs as their larger counterparts. The secret lies in timing. The deceiver waits until a dominant male and female pair are locked in ritual, then drifts close, aligning his false female side toward the alpha, while his true male side communicates privately with the female through subtle color pulses. The entire exchange lasts seconds. When the act is complete, the smaller male retreats before the deception is discovered. Evolution has favored not only strength but performance, in this case, a literal costume change. The cuttlefish's control over light extends beyond camouflage and courtship. It also becomes a weapon. When hunting shrimp and small fish, it deploys one of the most mesmerizing and unsettling tactics in nature: strobe hypnosis. The attack begins with stillness. The cuttlefish locks its gaze on a shrimp perched on coral. Then, in a slow pulse, waves of alternating dark and bright bands roll across its body toward the head. The rhythm accelerates, creating a flickering strobe effect. To the shrimp, sensitive to motion and contrast, this pulsing light confuses its nervous system, freezing it in place. The predator inches forward, arms poised, until it lunges. Two feeding tentacles hidden between the arms shoot out like elastic harpoons, striking the prey with lightning speed. The strike is powered by muscle pressure rather than elastic recoil, giving it precision and force without delay. The prey is drawn inward, immobilized by the speed and consumed whole. This hypnotic hunting strategy is a remarkable intersection of neurobiology and optics, a predator exploiting the sensory limits of its prey. By manipulating visual signals at the frequency that disorients crustacean neurons, the cuttlefish effectively hacks the perception of another animal. It is not brute force that wins here, but control of information. Nature's first optical illusionist weaponizes confusion. The cuttlefish's brain, relative to its body size, is among the largest of any invertebrate. Its central nervous system is organized into lobes resembling those of vertebrates, with dedicated regions for vision, learning, and motor coordination. Laboratory experiments have demonstrated their capacity for problem-solving, observational learning, and even memory recall. In maze tests, they can remember visual cues for days, adjusting strategies based on previous experience. This intelligence is not mammalian mimicry. It is convergent evolution's answer to the same ecological problem: how to survive in a world that demands adaptability. The cuttlefish does not rely on claws or shells, but on perception, prediction, and the ability to reinvent itself in a blink. At night, the transformation continues. The reef dims into shadow, and the cuttlefish shifts from day camouflage to luminescent display. Its chromatophores dim while iridophores scatter moonlight into ghostly blues. It hovers near the sand, its silhouette softened by the glow of plankton drifting in the current. A predator passes, perhaps a small reef shark, but does not notice. The cuttlefish's body reflects the faint polarization of the moon's light in a pattern indistinguishable from the surrounding water. In total darkness, it becomes absence made visible, an organism that erases itself from the visual field. The ecological impact of such mastery extends far beyond survival. As mid-level predators, cuttlefish control populations of crustaceans and small fish, indirectly shaping reef dynamics. Their reproductive cycles, synchronized with lunar phases, also drive feeding behavior in larger species that follow the spawning aggregations. Even after death, their internal shells, the cuttlebones, wash ashore, providing calcium to the nutrient cycles of beaches and dunes. The artistry written on their skin is only the visible fraction of an invisible network of biological influence. As dawn returns, the cuttlefish glides once more over a field of seagrass. Its body flickers with patterns of passing clouds, each shadow absorbed and replicated in microseconds. It pauses, hovers, then dissolves into the background so completely that only the faint ripple of its fin betrays its presence. For a moment, the reef seems empty. Then, as a crab wanders too close, the illusion collapses. The body flashes from sand to lightning, the tentacles strike and the prey vanishes. The hunter resumes its stillness, the stage reset for the next act. In the silent theater of the sea, the cuttlefish reigns as the ultimate shapeshifter, not a creature of brute force, but of perception. Its body is both screen and actor, weapon and message. It deceives, seduces, and conquers through light, color, and motion. To study it is to glimpse evolution's most refined technology, an organism that learned, long before humans did, how to rewrite the world simply by changing what others see. The horizon begins to blur where sea meets night. The last sunlight fades from the reef shallows, and a slow, deliberate shadow rises from the blue. Its shape is unmistakable, thick-bodied, broad-nosed, and gliding without urgency. The tiger shark, Galiocerdo cuvier, moves like a drifting continent of muscle and nerve. Its stripes, faint in daylight, near invisible in darkness, ripple with each turn. To the reef's daytime residents, it is a phantom of myth, the silent thief that arrives with the tide and disappears just as quietly before dawn. But behind the legend of the sea's garbage collector lies a creature of precision, navigation, and surprising restraint, a predator that reads the earth itself to find its way home. Beneath its rough skin and serrated teeth lies a navigation system as old as the planet's magnetic field. The tiger shark, like many migratory species, carries within its head a built-in compass, a sensory structure called the ampullae of Lorenzini. These gel-filled canals detect faint electrical and magnetic cues, allowing the shark to map the invisible geometry of the Earth's magnetic field. But recent studies reveal that tiger sharks go beyond simple orientation. They use geomagnetic signatures as literal maps, a form of spatial memory that allows them to navigate across thousands of kilometers of open ocean with unerring precision. Each coastline, island chain, and deep-water trench carries a unique magnetic fingerprint. Juveniles imprint on these fields early in life, learning to locate nursery grounds years later with the same accuracy that birds use to find migratory flyways. The nurseries themselves are hidden havens, shallow lagoons, mangrove-fringed bays, and sheltered coral shelves where currents slow and prey is abundant. Here, newborn tiger sharks, barely longer than a human arm, learn the first rules of their inheritance. The young feed on fish, rays, and crustaceans, their stripes sharper and darker than adults. Natural camouflage that breaks their outline against sand and shadow. Mothers do not linger after birth. Tiger sharks are ovoviviparous, meaning the embryos develop inside eggs within the mother's body, feeding on yolk until they emerge alive. By the time they are born, each pup is already armed with teeth, instinct, and an independent life ahead. The lack of parental care, far from a weakness, is an evolutionary bet on numbers and resilience, a strategy that has persisted for millions of years. From these nurseries, young sharks disperse into deeper water, guided by magnetic cues and temperature gradients. Over the years, they develop home ranges stretching across ocean basins. Some individuals have been tracked traveling between island groups hundreds of kilometers apart, returning with seasonal regularity to the same feeding grounds and reefs. This cyclic movement forms part of an ecological rhythm, a pulse of predation and scavenging that keeps marine ecosystems in balance. The tiger shark's diet is notoriously diverse, earning it a reputation as the ocean's wastebasket, but this title oversimplifies its ecological role. It is not a careless eater, it is a recycler, removing carrion and controlling mid-level predators that might otherwise overwhelm coral reef food webs. Nightfall transforms its behavior. During the day, tiger sharks patrol deeper channels, conserving energy and avoiding unnecessary conflict with faster reef hunters like blacktips and grey reef sharks. But as darkness spreads, they ascend the reef slope, following the edge where coral meets open water. The temperature drops slightly here, and the rising tide draws in prey from the flats, turtles, rays, squid, and sleeping fish. The tiger shark glides along these corridors with calculated efficiency, its movements slow, deliberate, and methodical. Its eyes, rich with rod cells adapted to low light, capture motion in near darkness. Its olfactory organs, capable of detecting a drop of blood diluted in millions of liters of seawater, guide it toward opportunity long before sight confirms it. The shark's reputation as an opportunist finds its most dramatic expression when scavenging. Across the open ocean, whale carcasses occasionally drift into its path, vast decaying islands of protein and oil known as whale slicks. These events are rare but transformative. A single carcass can feed an entire marine community for months. When a whale dies, gases build within its body, buoying it to the surface where the slick forms. The scent of decay, carried by currents, draws in sharks from miles away. The tiger is often among the first to arrive. It does not frenzy. It circles. Other sharks join, oceanic whitetips, hammerheads, sometimes great whites. There is no hierarchy here, only etiquette enforced by presence and size. The tiger, with its massive head and serrated teeth, can shear through bone and blubber, tearing away the tough layers others cannot manage. The feeding is slow, almost ceremonial. Oil slicks rise to the surface, coating the water with rainbows. Around the edges, seabirds pick at fragments. Decomposition becomes an ecosystem, a final transformation of one giant into sustenance for countless others. Such scenes cement the tiger shark's mythos as a scavenger and opportunist, but they obscure its intelligence. This species is no mindless drifter. It learns and remembers, adapting to human presence, vessel traffic, and even fishing pressure. Tracking studies in the Hawaiian archipelago, have shown that individual tiger sharks alter their routes to avoid regions of high boat density. Others have been observed patrolling coastal regions only at night, minimizing encounters with humans while maximizing hunting success. These behaviors suggest not random wandering, but behavioral flexibility, a hallmark of apex predators that survive across changing oceans. During the day, another side of the tiger shark emerges, one few ever imagine. At reef cleaning stations, where smaller fish like wrasse and gobies service larger species by removing parasites, tiger sharks occasionally approach in surprising deference. Instead of the dominance one might expect, the shark slows, lowering its pectoral fins and adjusting posture to signal non-aggression. Cleaner fish, attuned to subtle body language, respond by moving across its skin, plucking away parasites and dead tissue. The shark remains still, hovering, its eyes half-lidded. In that moment, the so-called monster becomes a client, part of an ancient social economy that spans species and size. It waits patiently as smaller mouths sweep along its gills, even into its mouth. When the cleaning ends, the shark glides off without a ripple of hostility. This mutualism, rare but observed, challenges the caricature of the tiger shark as indiscriminate killer. In reality, it occupies multiple ecological roles: predator, scavenger, caretaker of balance. Its reputation stems more from human fear than biological truth. Unlike the great white, it rarely strikes out of curiosity. Most reported bites occur when humans enter feeding zones or provoke investigation. In natural conditions, the tiger shark's attention is efficient, not reckless. Evolution has honed this animal for endurance and precision. Its body is supported by a cartilaginous skeleton that reduces weight without sacrificing strength. A large liver, rich in squalene oil, provides buoyancy, allowing it to maintain depth with minimal effort. The counter-shading pattern of its skin, pale below, dusky above, conceals it against both light and darkness. Even its teeth are built for versatility. Curved, serrated blades designed to shear through turtle shell and fish scale alike. Each tooth is replaced throughout its life, ensuring a perpetual readiness that matches its nomadic existence. But perhaps the most striking aspect of the tiger shark's life is its temporal rhythm, the way its presence follows the moon. Tides govern its movements as much as hunger. Many individuals are known to synchronize patrols with lunar cycles, using increased nighttime illumination to navigate coastal corridors and deeper drop-offs. Scientists suspect that the gravitational pull of the moon, which influences both tide and geomagnetic field, provides subtle cues that these sharks integrate into their internal compass. In this sense, their migrations are not random wanderings, but tidal choreography, movements written into the fabric of the planet itself. At dawn, the tide retreats and the tiger shark descends once more into the deep blue. Its silhouette fades beneath the surface, returning to the quiet expanse where it began. The reef awakens above, parrotfish grinding coral, damselfish darting among branches, unaware of the patrol that just passed. The tide thief leaves no trail, no signature, but the pulse it restores to the ecosystem it governs. Beneath the myths of menace lies the truth of mastery. The tiger shark is not the villain of the reef, but its regulator, a scavenger that prevents disease from spreading through decay, a hunter that prunes excess from abundance, a traveler guided by the Earth's invisible fields. It lives by the rhythm of currents and tides, its roots carved not in sand but in magnetism. And when it vanishes into the blue each morning, the ocean feels momentarily lighter, as though the tide itself had slipped quietly away with its most disciplined thief. The night air above the mangrove estuary hums with heat and insects. The tide creeps in, curling around the tangled roots, carrying the smell of brine and decay. The moon has just cleared the horizon, not full but bright enough to paint the water silver. In that reflected light, something ancient moves. A faint ripple disturbs the surface, spreading outward like a breath. Then stillness again. Below the sheen, hidden in the tannin-dark water, a crocodile waits, motionless, patient, tuned to lunar time and tidal rhythm like a living metronome of predation. The saltwater crocodile, Crocodilus porosus, is the largest living reptile on Earth and one of evolution's most complete success stories. It has survived unchanged for tens of millions of years, through ice ages, sea level shifts, and the rise and fall of continents. Yet its continued dominance is not due to brute strength alone. The crocodile is a strategist, an opportunist whose patience is measured in moon cycles and whose ambushes are planned with the precision of a machine built by nature for one purpose: to strike once and end everything in that instant. A camera hovering above the estuary would reveal almost nothing. Only two rough ridges, the bony scales above its eyes, break the surface, mimicking the shape of drifting wood or a pair of half-submerged leaves. These raised ridges, positioned like the hoods of a submarine periscope, are an evolutionary adaptation that allows the crocodile to see while remaining virtually invisible. Its nostrils and eyes are elevated on the top of its skull, while the rest of its head lies submerged. The body, heavy and armored, remains completely hidden, suspended in the water's density through a delicate balance of lung volume and muscle tension. It can hover there indefinitely, buoyed by air sacs within its body cavity that act as ballast tanks. With a minute adjustment, a contraction here, a released breath there, the crocodile can sink or rise silently, controlling depth with a precision more subtle than any human diver's. What appears as stillness from above is, in truth, intense sensory vigilance. The crocodile's jawline bristles with tiny black pits, integumentary sense organs that can detect the faintest ripples or vibrations in the water. These organs are so sensitive they can perceive the disturbance created by a single droplet. This hydrodynamic radar allows the crocodile to see movement even in complete darkness, reading the water's surface like a map of motion. Its hearing is acute, attuned to frequencies carried through air and liquid alike, while its eyes, equipped with vertical pupils and a reflective layer called the tapetum lucidum, amplify even the dimmest light. Together, these senses fuse into a single seamless system, a multi-sensory field that renders the night transparent. When the moon reaches certain phases, particularly the waxing crescent and full, the crocodile becomes more active. Tides rise higher during these periods, pushing brackish water deep into mangrove channels. The crocodile uses these lunar tidal cycles like a train schedule, riding the flood pulses inland to reach areas that would be inaccessible at low tide. It positions itself at the mouths of creeks and channels, where the water funnels prey into narrow passages. As the tide recedes, fish, birds, and mammals trapped in shallows attempt to escape with the flow. The crocodile waits for that exact moment, when current and confusion align, and then moves. The strike begins before it is even visible. The crocodile's body, resting in neutral buoyancy, flexes explosively. The tail, a muscular lever that makes up half the animal's length, sweeps once with the force of a whip. The jaws open underwater, and in less than the blink of an eye, the prey is engulfed. This is not a lunge in the human sense, but an engineered vacuum strike, a rapid forward thrust that displaces water, creating suction. The jaws, lined with conical teeth designed for grip rather than slicing, snap shut with a force exceeding a ton. The resulting impact is so fast and violent that even animals adapted to rapid reflexes, fish, birds, crabs, stand no chance of reaction. Evolution has taught the crocodile that the greatest weapon is not speed alone, but timing. Daylight reveals the aftermath of the night's hunt. The crocodile now lies on a mudbank, motionless, basking in the morning sun. Its jaws gape open, not in threat, but in thermoregulation. Unlike mammals, crocodiles cannot sweat. They manage temperature through behavior. When overheated, they retreat into the water. When cold, they sun themselves, opening the mouth to release excess heat through evaporation. Inside those jaws, sensors monitor temperature shifts with astonishing precision, allowing the reptile to maintain metabolic stability despite fluctuating environments. This ability to switch between aquatic ambush and terrestrial basking gives the crocodile dominion over both worlds. The mangrove itself is an ecosystem that mirrors the crocodile's adaptability, half land, half sea, pulsing with tides and life. Herons, kingfishers, and storks hunt in its shadows. At night, colonies of fruit bats and roosting birds fill the branches, their movements tracked by eyes below. Crocodiles exploit this vertical abundance as well. They position themselves beneath favored roosts, where branches hang low over the water. A startled bird losing grip or balance can fall, a splash, a feather, then nothing. To a witness, these kills seem almost supernatural, as though the river itself had claimed the bird. In truth, it is another form of ambush perfected over centuries, patience rewarded by chance. Such behavior demonstrates the crocodile's mastery of energy economy. Unlike warm-blooded predators that must eat frequently to sustain high metabolism, crocodiles operate in a different physiological world. They are ectothermic, drawing heat from their environment rather than generating it internally. As a result, they can survive for months on a single substantial meal. When food is scarce, they slow their metabolism by half, their heartbeat dropping to just a few beats per minute. Blood circulation is rerouted to conserve oxygen, a trait that also allows them to remain submerged for extended periods. Larger individuals can stay underwater for over an hour without surfacing, their bodies functioning at the edge of dormancy, a state of living patience. Yet patience is not passivity. During monsoon floods, crocodiles turn mobility into opportunity. When rivers overflow, they disperse across flooded plains, using the new waterways to expand territory and colonize isolated wetlands. Locals in northern Australia and Southeast Asia have learned to read these movements. After heavy rains, sightings spike near inland lakes, rice paddies, even cattle pastures. The crocodiles, following water like migrating ghosts, return to the estuaries once the flood recedes, leaving only their tracks pressed into drying mud, hieroglyphs of movement carved by instinct and lunar tide. There is also an intelligence beneath that armored skull, one far more complex than instinct alone. Field studies have documented individual crocodiles exhibiting learning behavior and memory. They recognize recurring boat routes, timing their presence near fish-cleaning docks. Some position themselves near ferry crossings where villagers discard scraps. They even appear to remember the location of seasonal bird colonies, returning each year to the same mangrove groves when fledglings begin to fall. Such behaviors blur the line between instinct and cognition, suggesting an animal that not only reacts to its environment, but anticipates it. The moon plays another subtle role in this story, not only in tides, but in vision. Nocturnal crocodiles rely on reflected moonlight to silhouette prey against the surface. During new moons, when darkness is total, they shift tactics, hunting in shallower waters where bioluminescent plankton or reflected starlight still reveal outlines. This lunar dependency influences their feeding cycles. On full moons, they become more active near estuary mouths, where tides are strongest and prey most concentrated. The crocodile's entire hunting strategy, from location to timing, is therefore bound to celestial rhythm, a predator synchronized not just with habitat, but with planetary mechanics. As dawn brightens, the estuary begins to fill with sound again, crickets fading, kingfishers calling, the slap of mullet breaking the surface. The crocodile, now indistinguishable from the log beside it, sinks back beneath the surface. Its nostrils close with a watertight seal, its heart slows, and the water closes over its back. The tide continues to rise, carrying it outward toward the delta's edge. The same moon that guided its hunt now pulls it seaward again, back toward open channels where the next cycle will begin. To call the crocodile a survivor is to undersell it. It is a living chronometer of planetary rhythm, an organism so attuned to its environment that even the moon's orbit leaves its mark on its behavior. Its patience is weaponized, its power hidden behind stillness. Where others chase and fail, it waits and wins. Every ripple, every breath, every flick of the tide is part of a larger script written by gravity, evolution, and time. As night falls again, the estuary resets. The mangroves whisper, the water darkens, and somewhere beneath the silver reflection of the moon, the tide thief stirs. It drifts into position, just another shadow in the flood, waiting, as it has waited for millions of years, for the next careless heartbeat to break the surface tension of the world it rules. The sea at dawn is glass flat, a mirror that hides motion beneath its surface. Out in the shallows of a coastal bay, a thin mist hovers over the water like breath, and beneath it, something stirs, faint ripples moving in deliberate circles. Then a burst of chaos. Small fish erupt from the surface as though launched by invisible catapults. Moments later, the architects of this upheaval appear, bottlenose dolphins, cutting through the still water with calculated speed. Their faces, forever curved in that benign, deceptive smile, give nothing away. But what unfolds here is not play. It is strategy, the kind that would make a tactician proud. These are the famous mud ring hunters of the southeastern United States, dolphin pods that use sediment as a weapon. The lead dolphin circles tightly in the shallows, beating its tail against the sand to kick up a wall of fine silt. The plume expands outward, an underwater curtain that quickly becomes a barrier of disorientation. Trapped between the mud ring and the air above, the fish panic. They leap blindly to escape what they think is a predator's body, only to vault into open air, straight into the dolphin's waiting jaws. In seconds, the water clears, and the dolphins regroup, clicking and whistling in short, sharp bursts. To the casual eye, it looks playful, almost joyful. But beneath that grace lies precision, coordination, and learned intelligence passed through generations. The behavior is not instinct alone. Studies of these pods reveal that calves observe and practice for years before mastering the technique. The lead circler, often a mature female, takes the most active role, while others form the perimeter. This division of labor reflects a deep social structure, a network of individuals bound not by hierarchy, but by communication and trust. Their language is not random sound. Each dolphin possesses a unique signature whistle, an acoustic identifier akin to a name. When one whistles, others respond, recognizing that individual across vast distances. These calls are not mere echoes of emotion. They are markers of identity, memory, and cooperation. The roll call whistles allow pods to organize with surgical precision. During hunts, dolphins often spread out over wide areas, communicating through a complex blend of clicks, whistles, and burst pulses. Sound is their currency, a medium that travels nearly 5 times faster underwater than in air. Using echolocation, they see with sound, sending rapid sequences of clicks that bounce off objects and return as echoes. From those echoes, they can determine not only distance and shape, but even the internal composition of prey. A dolphin can distinguish a fish from a squid and a hollow shell from a solid rock, all without light. Their brains translate the returning signals into mental images so detailed that some researchers believe dolphins perceive their surroundings in a form of acoustic holography. Yet intelligence in the dolphin's world is not just about perception, it is about manipulation. In parts of South America, along river estuaries, dolphins have been observed working with human fishermen. When the dolphins herd schools of fish toward shore, they signal the fishermen with distinctive splashes or tail slaps. The humans cast their nets at just the right moment, catching the fish while the dolphins snatch the stragglers that escape. Both sides benefit, an alliance that predates written history. The behavior likely began as opportunistic scavenging, but evolved into mutual coordination, proof that dolphins can interpret and predict the intentions of another species entirely. In other regions, deception is a tool of survival. The coastal dolphins of South Carolina and Georgia have developed an extraordinary hunting tactic known as strand feeding. During low tide, they locate schools of mullet in narrow tidal creeks and drive them toward mudbanks. Then, in a burst of synchronized force, several dolphins lunge out of the water, pushing the fish onto the shore. For a few seconds, the predators beach themselves alongside the prey, thrashing and snapping before sliding back into the water with a flick of the tail. To the human eye, it looks reckless. The risk of stranding seems enormous, but every movement is calculated. The dolphins choose sloping banks where the water's edge is deep enough to allow easy retreat. They know their terrain intimately. More remarkably, they appear to adjust timing based on tide cycles and even on the position of the sun, exploiting reflections that confuse the fish. The spectacle of strand feeding has been described as both brutal and brilliant, a perfect example of learned coordination. But not all cunning serves hunger. Dolphins also engage in behavior that blurs the line between play and preparation. In many regions, they can be seen surfing waves, tossing seaweed between each other, or balancing jellyfish and sponges on their rostrums. These acts appear frivolous, yet each one builds skill, maneuverability, timing, coordination, even endurance. In younger dolphins, play is essential training for the high-stakes precision of hunting and social bonding. Some forms of play, however, reveal something more unsettling, a curiosity about control and power. Dolphins have been observed harassing smaller sharks, flipping them onto their backs to induce a state known as tonic immobility, a reflex that renders the shark temporarily paralyzed. What seems like bullying is, in truth, biological education. By experimenting with the physics of fear, the dolphins learn how to neutralize competitors and potential threats. The relationship between dolphins and sharks is a study in contrast, speed versus surprise, strategy versus instinct. While dolphins are not apex predators in the same sense as tiger sharks or orcas, they dominate through teamwork and intellect. A single dolphin facing a large shark is vulnerable, but a coordinated pod is formidable. Their strategy relies on precision strikes to the shark's gills or snout, both highly sensitive areas rich in electroreceptors. When threatened, dolphins will form a defensive circle, calves in the center, adults facing outward. They strike not with teeth, but with sheer kinetic energy. A dolphin's rostrum, the elongated snout, is reinforced by dense bone and backed by muscular propulsion. When they ram a shark at full speed, the impact is enough to fracture cartilage and stun even large species. The technique, though rarely fatal, establishes dominance. It teaches the sharks to keep their distance. Sound also becomes a weapon. During high-stress encounters, dolphins emit intense burst pulses that can disorient or startle predators. While these pulses are not sonar in the lethal sense, they do not incapacitate through vibration. The sound pressure can reach levels that cause discomfort or confusion in nearby animals. In this way, dolphins blend physical and acoustic defense into a seamless system of deterrence. Each confrontation reinforces social cohesion, strengthening bonds that will later define cooperative hunts and protective behavior around calves. To truly understand dolphin intelligence, one must also grasp their social complexity. Pods are not rigid hierarchies but fluid networks, alliances that shift based on age, kinship, and circumstance. In places like Shark Bay, Australia, males form long-term coalitions, sometimes lasting decades. These alliances work in tiers. Small groups cooperate to court and guard females, while larger alliances form to outcompete rival coalitions. The sophistication rivals that of primate societies, and the communication required to maintain it is immense. Dolphins coordinate through sound, body posture, and even bubble patterns. They understand context, the difference between aggression, invitation, and jest. Their social intelligence is as much about reading emotion as it is about strategizing. Within this social tapestry, empathy and scheming coexist. Dolphins have been documented assisting injured individuals, lifting them to the surface to breathe. Yet the same intelligence that enables compassion also fuels manipulation. In controlled studies, dolphins quickly learn how to game reward systems, performing specific behaviors only when they realize it benefits them most. They improvise, cheat, and innovate. One captive dolphin, taught to collect litter in exchange for fish, began tearing larger pieces into smaller fragments, creating more trash to turn in for extra rewards. Another learned to hide objects to later discover them when trainers were watching. This duality, playful yet calculating, defines the dolphin's cognitive signature. In the wild, this adaptability fuels their survival. When climate events or overfishing alter prey patterns, dolphins shift hunting grounds and methods within weeks. In deeper offshore pods, they employ carousel feeding, herding fish into tight bait balls by swimming in spirals, releasing jets of bubbles to trap them. The technique requires immaculate timing. Each dolphin takes a turn diving through the mass, snapping up prey, then rotating out to allow another access. It is the underwater equivalent of a choreographed ballet, complex, efficient, and perfectly synchronized. The camera pans outward, following a pod as it moves through sunlit turquoise water. The ocean's surface ripples in ribbons of gold. The dolphins glide in formation, their bodies silver under the refracted light. They click and whistle, a living chorus of sound that seems almost musical. Every few moments one breaks the surface, exhales through its blowhole in a brief mist, then dives again. They move not as individuals, but as a single organism made of intelligence and motion. Beneath that eternal smile lies a mind tuned to both cooperation and cunning. The dolphin is predator and prankster, strategist and socialite, scientist and soldier. Its world is not governed by instinct alone, but by curiosity, a constant drive to test, learn, and adapt. It builds walls of mud, tricks fish onto shore, invents names for its companions, and turns play into preparation for war. The sea for the dolphin is both battlefield and playground, and the line between the two is as fluid as the tide. It smiles not from joy or malice, but from mastery, the expression of an animal that has learned the oldest lesson of the ocean. Survival belongs not to the strongest or the fastest, but to the cleverest schemer beneath the waves. The morning light filters through the ocean like sunlight through stained glass, refracted, softened, and sanctified by depth. Beneath the blue canopy of the open sea, immense shadows glide in silence. They move not with haste, but with certainty, tracing paths that seem almost architectural in precision. As the camera descends, the shapes resolve into manta rays, wingspans stretching wider than most cars, bodies tapering to whips of tail. Their movements are both power and grace condensed into geometry, like slow-motion flight through an underwater cathedral. These are the oceanic mantas, Mobula birostris, kin to the reef mantas that inhabit shallower tropical waters. They are fish, but fish remade by evolution's boldest sculptor. Their pectoral fins have become wings, their mouths face forward rather than down, and from their heads extend two flexible lobes that curl and unfurl like ribbons of silk. These cephalic lobes are the first clue to understanding their intelligence and their strategy. To the casual diver, the lobes might look ornamental, but in truth they are dynamic tools, living funnels that manipulate water with the precision of engineered intake valves. When a manta feeds, it unfurls these lobes and sweeps them forward to form a channel that directs water, and everything suspended in it, into its cavernous mouth. This is filtration in motion, a performance of hydrodynamic mastery. The manta's gill rakers act as sieves, trapping plankton and tiny crustaceans while expelling clean water through its gill slits. Yet what makes this process remarkable is not just efficiency, but adaptability. When food density is high, mantas engage in what biologists call barrel roll feeding. They loop continuously in vertical spirals, creating a self-sustaining vortex of plankton, a torus of nourishment. Each roll captures what the previous one stirred, maximizing intake without chasing prey. It is the closest thing to underwater foraging choreography, a behavior so elegant that divers watching it often forget they are witnessing a feeding strategy rather than a dance. But intelligence in manta rays reveals itself not merely through feeding innovation, it resides in how they navigate their social and spatial world. For decades, they were thought to be solitary drifters, creatures of the open sea guided only by instinct. Then technology caught up with curiosity. Researchers began cataloging individuals through unique spot patterns on their ventral sides, black and white constellations as distinctive as fingerprints. With thousands of photographic records compiled over years, an intricate map of manta social life emerged. The patterns revealed not randomness but structure, recurring associations between individuals, social hierarchies within feeding grounds, and even regional affiliations that resemble loose communities. Some rays were documented visiting the same cleaning stations year after year, sometimes alongside the same companions. Others seemed to prefer certain routes between atolls or specific seasons for aggregation. The data suggested something extraordinary, a level of social awareness more complex than most fish exhibit, perhaps rivaling that of dolphins or elephants. At the heart of this network are the so-called cleaning cathedrals. These are coral pinnacles, seamounts, or reef outcrops, where the water rises gently and cleaner fish, such as wrasses and butterfly fish, maintain their territory. Here, the mantas gather to be serviced, gliding in one at a time or in slow circuits, waiting their turn as smaller fish remove parasites, dead skin, and algae from their bodies. The scene feels ritualistic. Each manta approaches slowly, spreads its wings wide, and hovers motionless as the cleaners move over its skin. Some tilt sideways, others loop in holding patterns before descending again. The choreography is orderly, unspoken, and observed by rules that no one taught, yet everyone obeys. The cleaning stations function as both spa and social hub. Within these sanctuaries, the mantas establish an etiquette rarely seen in other marine species. Dominance here is not expressed through aggression, but through position and timing. New arrivals often wait at the periphery, while established individuals occupy the core of the site. There are even instances of apparent queuing behavior, a concept more familiar to primates than to fish. Scientists studying these interactions have recorded recognition between individuals, evident when a manta returns to the same site and immediately takes its habitual position. Such consistency implies not only memory, but awareness of self in relation to others. The notion of manta self-awareness gained ground from controlled experiments involving mirrors, tests designed to assess whether an animal can recognize itself. When a reef manta was shown its reflection, it did not respond as though confronted by a rival. Instead, it performed behaviors never seen in other contexts: unusual body movements, fin postures, and repeated inspection of its own image. It hovered before the mirror for extended periods, as though investigating the reflection with curiosity rather than aggression. This behavior, combined with its large brain-to-body ratio, the largest among all fish, has led some researchers to propose that mantas may possess a form of consciousness previously attributed only to mammals and a few bird species. Their brains are remarkable not just in size but in composition. The cephalic region is packed with neurons dedicated to processing sensory information, especially from the lateral line and visual systems. Mantas rely heavily on sight. Their eyes, positioned laterally, give them a near panoramic view of their surroundings. Unlike most filter feeders that drift passively, mantas actively scan and adjust their orientation relative to light, current, and prey concentration. Their navigational sense is aided by magnetic receptors that allow them to traverse vast ocean expanses without losing direction. Some individuals have been tracked traveling thousands of kilometers between feeding and breeding grounds, often returning to the exact same sites year after year, a feat of spatial memory that rivals migratory birds. Their intelligence extends to risk management. In areas where tiger sharks and orcas patrol, mantas modify their routes to avoid deep channels during dawn and dusk, when predators are most active. They also form temporary aggregations, safety through numbers, positioning themselves so that no individual remains isolated. The fluidity of their social bonds suggests situational cognition, an ability to assess context and respond accordingly. At the surface, mantas occasionally breach, leaping clear of the water, crashing back in thunderous splashes. The purpose of this spectacle is still debated. Some biologists argue it's a means of parasite removal. Others suggest it's communication or mating display. Yet field observations hint that the breaching may serve multiple purposes: a way to signal presence to distant rays, to test social responses, or perhaps even to play. The distinction between utility and pleasure is hard to draw in animals whose behavior appears so deliberate, so self-aware. The manta's ecological role is equally significant. As filter feeders, they are custodians of planktonic populations, indirectly influencing nutrient cycles and water clarity. Their predictable routes attract cleaner fish, remoras, and even small predators that follow in their wake for scraps, forming transient ecosystems that mirror the larger balance of the ocean itself. At cleaning stations, their presence fosters biodiversity. The gathering of mantas draws other species, from reef fish to small sharks, turning these cathedrals into nodes of ecological traffic. And yet, for all their grandeur, mantas are vulnerable. Their slow reproductive rate, females give birth to a single pup every few years, leaves populations susceptible to overfishing and habitat disruption. They are hunted in some regions for their gill plates, falsely marketed as medicinal, a trade that has decimated local populations. Conservation efforts now rely heavily on identification databases built from the same belly spot photographs that once revealed their social maps. Each new entry is a testimony of individuality, a name written in pigment, a life that can be tracked, protected, remembered. Back beneath the reef, the light dims as afternoon clouds gather above. The mantas continue their procession, gliding one by one through shafts of filtered sunlight. Cleaner fish dart like sparks along their flanks. The scene has the solemnity of a ritual. Creatures assembled in an ancient congregation, bound by instinct and something that looks very much like awareness. For a final moment, a giant female turns toward the camera. Her eyes, large and dark, fix on the lens. There is no panic, no reflexive flight. Only stillness, a quiet evaluation, as though curiosity passes between observer and observed. Then she banks, rolls once in slow motion, and disappears into the blue. The cathedral empties, the worshippers dispersed, but the impression lingers. In the realm of the manta ray, intelligence takes a new shape, not one of tools or words, but of movement, memory, and silent understanding. The ocean, in their presence, feels less like wilderness and more like architecture, vast, resonant, and ruled by minds that glide beneath its vaulted ceilings, aware not only of the world around them, but perhaps of themselves within it. The camera sinks through a forest of kelp, golden ribbons twisting in the current like cathedral drapes in a slow-motion wind. Shafts of light cut through the canopy, igniting suspended particles into a quiet snowstorm. Below, the forest floor seems alive with movement, yet nothing appears to swim. Instead, it crawls, grinds, and grazes. What looks like a carpet of purple, red, and green stones reveals itself as a horde of living machines, sea urchins, thousands of them, rolling on spiny legs of calcite and hunger. Each urchin is an armored sphere, a perfect synthesis of geometry and purpose. The five-fold symmetry of its body, known as pentaradial design, hides an ancient mechanism at its core, a mouth made not of flesh, but of teeth. The Greeks called it Aristotle's lantern, a name as strange as the structure itself. It consists of 5 interlocking jaws, each bearing a self-sharpening tooth that grows continuously, wearing down against stone yet never dulling. Through this lantern, the urchin chews algae, coral, and even solid rock. The sound of it, if magnified, would be the ocean's quiet, grinding heartbeat, an army of mouths sanding the seabed grain by grain. By day they hunker in crevices, their spines bristling with trapped shells and kelp bits, camouflage against fish and birds. But when the sun drops and the water cools, the bulldozers emerge. Under moonlight or in complete darkness, they begin their march. One might expect chaos, but the movement has order. A slow advance, coordinated not by sight but by scent and vibration. Sea urchins detect chemical trails in the water through tube feet tipped with chemoreceptors. They can sense the faintest whiff of decaying kelp or drifting algae, orienting toward it like moths to flame. Together they move across the seafloor, devouring everything in their path. In healthy ecosystems, their hunger serves balance. Urchins keep fast-growing kelp in check, pruning the forest before it can smother reefs. Their waste, rich in calcium and nitrogen, feeds detritivores and fertilizes new growth. But in the absence of predators, this delicate equilibrium collapses. When sea otters vanish, hunted for fur or displaced by climate shifts, the urchin population explodes. With no one to keep them in check, they transform from gardeners into destroyers. The transformation is astonishing in scale and speed. Within months, a once thriving kelp forest can be reduced to barren rock, a landscape known to marine ecologists as an urchin barren. Where thick canopies once waved and fish darted among fronds, only desolation remains. The ocean floor turns into a desert of purple spines. The kelp's disappearance cascades through the ecosystem. Abalone starve, rockfish lose shelter, seabirds that once hunted above the forest find emptiness below. The bulldozers have done their work, but they do not stop. Even in famine, they persist. Urchins possess a chilling adaptation. the ability to survive on almost nothing. When food runs out, they slow their metabolism to a fraction of normal speed. Their bodies shrink as they reabsorb tissue, even digesting parts of their own internal organs to survive. Starvation can last years, yet they remain alive, waiting for the next algal bloom or the fall of a detached kelp frond. In laboratory studies, urchins deprived of food for half a decade have sprung back to life within weeks when fed again. This metabolic endurance, almost unheard of in multicellular animals, makes them both victims and perpetrators of ecological collapse. They can outlast the very ecosystem they destroy. The kelp forests that suffer this fate are some of the most productive ecosystems on Earth, underwater jungles rivaling tropical rainforests in complexity and carbon absorption. Each strand of kelp acts like a tree, drawing nutrients from upwelling currents and converting sunlight into oxygen. When these forests vanish, carbon cycling falters. The ocean absorbs less CO2 and the ripple reaches far beyond local shores. In this sense, the humble sea urchin, no larger than a fist, can alter the chemistry of the planet itself. Yet the story is not one of villainy, but of balance undone. In regions where otters return, the recovery is swift and dramatic. The predators, often no heavier than a large dog, patrol the kelp forests like shepherds among grazing flocks. They pry urchins from rocks, spin them in the water to remove spines, and devour them with cracking teeth. An adult otter can eat dozens of urchins a day, each one a small act of restoration. Where otters flourish, kelp rebounds. Where they disappear, the bulldozers roll again. The relationship between otter and urchin is one of evolution's tightest feedback loops. Predator and prey locked in ecological reciprocity. But humans, ever the unintentional third participant, complicate the equation. In places like California and Japan, overfishing of lobsters and sea stars, both urchin predators, accelerates the imbalance. Add warming oceans that weaken kelp holdfasts, and the result is catastrophe on a continental scale. Marine ecologists now experiment with solutions that blur the line between science and triage. Some divers have begun manually relocating urchins from barren zones to deeper, less sensitive habitats. An underwater migration project on a scale rarely attempted. Others propose reintroducing otters or cultivating seaweed farms to absorb the excess grazing pressure. In some areas, divers harvest urchins for culinary use. Their gonads, known as uni, are prized delicacies. It is a rare case where appetite becomes conservation, turning human demand into ecological correction. Beneath the scientific lens, the sea urchin is also a marvel of engineering. Its skeleton, or test, is a single piece of fused calcium carbonate designed to withstand crushing pressure. The spines, hollow yet strong, articulate through ball and socket joints that allow movement in every direction. Between them, hundreds of flexible tube feet extend, part of a hydraulic system powered by seawater. These feet function as both legs and sensory probes, each tipped with suction cups that grip rock and detect chemical signals. Together they form a distributed intelligence, a decentralized sensory array where no single brain is needed. The urchin's decisions arise from feedback loops between its feet, spines, and nerve ring, a primitive yet astonishingly effective form of computation. When stressed, urchins reveal their state through color. Species like Strongylocentrotus purpuratus, the purple sea urchin, shift hue under varying environmental conditions. In nutrient-poor or acidic water, their pigments fade from violet to pale lavender, signaling physiological strain. These color changes, once aesthetic curiosities, have become diagnostic tools for marine biologists monitoring ocean health. An urchin's shell is a living record. Its growth rings, like those of trees, capture temperature and acidity shifts through isotopic signatures. In this way, each individual becomes a biological archive, storing data about decades of oceanic change. As night deepens, the kelp forest hums with the sound of unseen grazers. Crabs scuttle between fronds, abalone cling to rock, and the urchins continue their endless crawl. Their spines catch dim moonlight, turning them into glittering constellations that move across the seabed. From above, the view is mesmerizing. a slow, living tide of geometry and hunger, erasing the line between animal and landscape. The camera drifts closer to one individual. Its mouth opens, revealing the 5 teeth of Aristotle's lantern grinding against stone. The motion is hypnotic, slow, mechanical, precise. The animal's tube feet undulate, anchoring it in place as the spines pivot rhythmically, like oars rowing through the sea's invisible current. It is easy to see why Aristotle himself, over 2 millennia ago, described this creature with fascination bordering on reverence. To him, the lantern seemed an enigma. How could such complexity exist in something so simple? Modern science has answered part of that question, but the mystery endures. The urchin is a creature of paradox, motion without haste, appetite without malice, destruction that makes room for renewal. It is both architect and demolisher, sculptor and saboteur. Its role in the ocean's grand design is neither heroic nor villainous, but cyclical, a reminder that ecosystems are not static, that every balance depends on tension. As dawn approaches, the first light seeps through the canopy. The urchins retreat, sinking back into cracks and hollows. Around them, the kelp begins its daily resurrection, blades rising toward the surface. In places where otters patrol, the forest will hold. In others, it will continue to fall. The bulldozers will wait until night returns, their lanterns ready, their patience infinite. And in that quiet darkness beneath the waves, the story of survival will begin again. The grinding of teeth on stone, the endless hunger that shapes the sea, and the fragile equilibrium that depends, as always, on what the world chooses to protect.